The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 701, Dragon and Tiger Contest Venue. Jun Changxiao came to the Black Mountain Cliff. Although he found a book on the demonic scripture, he did not find any information about the remnants of the demon sect, so he had to take his disciples away. On the way, he kept thinking, why can only he find the formation under the cliff? Or, the person who arranged the formation set a ban that ordinary warriors cannot spy on? If so, how did the leader of the Black Dragon Evil sect find the formation under the cliff? The system said, maybe others also have a chance. That's right. Jun Changxiao was relieved. Are the remnants of the demon sect who rebelled against the demon emperor sect related to the masked dark sect forces? If there is a connection, why do they keep causing trouble for me? The system said, could it be that they have discovered that Yao Mengying has an innate demon body, so they are deliberately targeting the host? Jun Changxiao slapped his forehead and said, it is very likely. Thinking about it carefully, this dark sect force appeared after Yao Mengying awakened her innate demon body. Hey. Jun Changxiao frowned and said, if I can't find out where the dark sect forces come from, I feel blocked. The system said, if they really come for Yao Mengying, they will definitely take action again. The host doesn't need to worry. Jun Changxiao said, I'm just afraid that they will play dirty and hurt my disciples. If it's aimed at me, I won't care. However, there are so many disciples in the sect. If the other party continues to play tricks, something will happen sooner or later. It's easy to dodge an open spear, but it's hard to guard against an arrow from the dark. If there is a choice, Jun Changxiao would rather fight a fair battle with third-rate evil sects such as the God-Killing Temple and the Demon Tongue Temple, rather than facing the dark sect forces. Sect Master Suzaomo said, are we going to the Dragon and Tiger battle venue? Yes. Great. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect were immediately excited. Since entering Zhangzhou and feeling the rich spiritual energy and various warriors, their hearts have been set on the Dragon and Tiger battle. Dazan Imperial City. The most prosperous and noble city. Every state has a royal city. As the Zhangzhou state in the continent, it naturally has a high-level imperial city. This Dragon and Tiger contest was held in the Dazan Imperial City. According to legend, the city was built in ancient times and has a long history. Jun Changxiao did not find the clues he wanted in the Black Mountain Cliff, so he brought his disciples here. The Imperial City is heavily guarded. To enter, you need to provide proof of identity. Are you the leader of the Eternal Sect? The gatekeeper general took the identity certificate and looked at Jun Changxiao carefully. Not bad. Jun Changxiao's heart skipped a beat. I thought, could it be that someone in this Imperial City is pretending to be me? Speaking of pretending, I have to mention Zhao Daodao. This guy who has been cheating since he was a child has always been locked up in the sect, and the disciples use him to practice bull when they have nothing to do. Although the Grand Elder of the Extreme Cold Palace is miserable, at least he can be considered a sweeping monk, and Zhao Daodao is a living punching bag. Who can let him pretend to be someone else? Why did he pretend to be Jun Changxiao and was caught in the act? Go in. The general at the gate waved his hand. After getting the pass, Jun Changxiao led his disciples through the city gate into the Dazan Imperial City. However, the warriors who were queuing to enter one after another looked surprised. Unexpectedly, this group of warriors in strange clothes would be disciples of the Eternal Sect, and the young man leading them would be Jun Changxiao. Walking into the tunnel entrance of the city gate, the street presented was very wide. Although the stone slabs were old, they exuded a mysterious oriental power. Step. Jun Changxiao stepped on him, and his mood seemed to be infected, and the whole person was stunned. Li Qingyang and others also had this feeling. They stood there blankly, and pictures flashed before their eyes, as if the ancient city was telling them about the past. These people should be coming to the Imperial City for the first time. Passers-by on the street looked at them one after another, with a smile on their lips. Dazan Imperial City, as one of the oldest cities in the Xingyan continent, all those who enter for the first time must be baptized by the historical heritage. To put it bluntly, It is a kind of aura that interferes with thinking, making outsiders instinctively feel awe for the city. This aura can ignore the realm of cultivation. No matter whether it is the king of martial arts or the emperor of martial arts, as long as they enter the great emperor city, they will be disturbed, and then they will be stunned in the same place until they feel awe in their hearts and recover. Let's go. Jun Changxiao's eyes regained their brilliance, and he stood up and walked. The disciples came back to their senses from their wild thoughts, and followed the master. The warriors in the city were dumbfounded. They froze for a short time, and then returned to normal. This speed was too fast, right? Or have they already been in awe of the imperial city? Master Jun and his disciples were surprised at the prosperity of the imperial city, but they did not feel the slightest awe. As for why they recovered so quickly, it was because the aura could not cause them any long-term interference. The Dazan imperial city is really huge. There are dozens of streets in just one area, and every street is bustling with people. There is still a month before the dragon and tiger contest. Since Jun Changxiao came first, he must find an inn to stay. Master. On the way, Li Qingyang said, there is a Tangjidan pharmacy in front. Oh. Jun Changxiao looked up and saw the Tangjidan pharmacy located in the most prosperous area of the street. At the door, many warriors gathered, waiting to buy the key gathering pill. Business is good. Suzai almost smiled and said, Sect Master, why don't we go in and take a look? Let's find an inn to stay first. Jun Changxiao was just about to start when a man in servant's clothes walked by and said, Sect Master Jun, my son has arranged a place to stay. Please follow me. Who is your son? The man said in a low voice, the second son of the Tang family. TSK. This partner is quite well informed. He ordered someone to make arrangements as soon as he came in. Please. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Led by the servant, they walked to several streets and stopped at a large mansion. As soon as he walked in, Tang Ren came out of the hall and smiled and said, Sect Master Jun, you are finally here. Mr. Tang. Jun Changxiao said, you are a little sneaky in inviting us. Tang Ren said, Sect Master Jun doesn't like to be publicized, so I don't dare to welcome him with fanfare. He had already learned about the Wangu sect's participation in the Dragon and Tiger contest, especially since he received the news just a few days after the other party left the sect. The Tang family is in the Dazan imperial city, so Tang Ren naturally has to do his best to be a good host. However, he thought that he was doing business with Sect Master Jun, and he was not allowed to let others know, so he decided to keep everything simple. Otherwise, he would have been warmly welcomed at the city gate. This way of secretly sending someone to invite him made Jun Changxiao very satisfied, because his purpose was to keep a low profile. Sect Master Jun. Tang Ren said, the mansion belongs to Tang. Although the environment is not as good, it is cleaner than the inn. If you don't mind, you can let your disciples stay here first. Then I'm sorry to bother you. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Originally, he planned to stay in the inn. Since young Master Tang provided accommodation for free, and it was such a big house, he must agree. It is unjust not to take advantage. Chapter 702. What's fun to do? The mansion provided by Tang Ren is very luxurious, and it also has a relatively independent martial arts field and training room. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect can move in and practice martial arts when they have nothing to do. However, even such a high standard mansion, in the mouth of Mr. Tang, the environment is a bit worse, better than an inn. He is indeed a rich man. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changxiao walked around the mansion and said, thank you for your trouble, Mr. Tang. You and I are business partners. Now that we are in the Imperial City, Tang will naturally do his best to entertain you, and dare not slack off at all. Tang Ren said with a smile. Jun Changxiao said, Mr. Tang, is there anything fun in the great Imperial City? It's still early for the Dragon and Tiger battle to start. Since you have come to such a big city, you must find time to go out and play. Tang Ren gave a look of I understand, and said in a low voice, there is Hongxiangfang in the north of the city, which is really a man's paradise. Tang will take Master Jun there tonight. A man's paradise? Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and he said, Mr. Tang, you misunderstood. When I said fun places, I didn't mean places of entertainment. I understand. I understand. Tang Ren whispered, if Sect Master Jun doesn't like to go out and play, it's fine to stay in the mansion. Jun Changxiao almost couldn't help kicking him out. I thought he was a smart man before, but why does he look a little stupid now? Or is it that the word lust is written on his face? Tang Ren can't be blamed for misunderstanding. After all, men, if they look for fun places, it is easy to think wrongly. What's more, as direct descendants from a big family, they all have their own circle of friends, and most of them go to places of entertainment to have fun every time they get together. In the evening, Tang Ren hosted a banquet for Jun Changxiao and the disciples of the Eternal Sect. After eating and drinking, Jun Changxiao went back to the house to rest. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw two beautiful women standing at the door. Sorry, I went to the wrong door. Jun Changxiao hurriedly turned around and backed away, but after walking out, he touched his head and said, no, this is my residence. He walked in again and said, you too, did you go to the wrong place? Mr. Jun. A charming woman smiled and said, we are here to serve you. The voice was numb and made people imagine. Jun Changxiao. This Tang Ren really thinks he is a lecher, and he actually arranged two beauties to sleep with him. Jun Changxiao said seriously, I don't need it, you can go back. The charming woman walked down with lotus steps and smiled. Young Master Tang has instructed that we must serve Mr. Jun well. Jun Zhangzu had been drinking a little wine, and when he heard the numb voice, his mind was immediately moved. No, no. We came to Dazan Imperial City to participate in the Dragon and Tiger contest, how can we indulge in women? Jun Changxiao's mind suddenly became clear, and he said in a deep voice, leave quickly, otherwise don't blame me for being ruthless. The voice contained the imperial power that could not be disobeyed, which made the two gorgeous beauties change their faces slightly and hurriedly bowed and left. Is it because my appearance is not good enough, and I have no attraction to my friend Tang Xiao? No. You are very good, but Master Jun. After the two women left, Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief. This kind of temptation of beauty is really a bit tricky, and I almost couldn't stabilize my mind, and chose to indulge. Don't look. Jun Changxiao said unhappily. Everyone has been driven away. Swish. Swish. In an instant, Suzaomo, Li Fei and others hurriedly withdrew their spiritual thoughts from the courtyard. Big sister. Ling Yuangsu smiled and said, I said that the master is a gentleman. Lu Qian said lightly, he has long realized that we are watching, otherwise he would have been hugged by left and right now. The next day, Jun Changxiao called Tang Ren over and said with a stern face, Mr. Tang, I have always kept myself clean, and I don't need anyone to serve me. Understood, understood. Tang Ren transmitted his voice. Sect Master Jun, it's my mistake that there are so many disciples here. I didn't think it through. I will be sneaky next time. Jun Changxiao almost vomited blood. It was all his fault for being so mean. He said something about whether there were any fun places, but he made this guy think that he was really a pervert. Sects from various states entered the imperial city one after another, and the number of people in the city increased day by day. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others seldom went out. They spent their time on cultivation, hoping to be in the best condition to welcome the battle between dragons and tigers. Although Sect Master Jun occasionally went out for a stroll, he still spent more time on finding out the detailed information of each sect. After all, only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you win every battle. Sect Master Jun. Tang Ren brought a large stack of information and said, these are all the information about the participating Zhangzhou forces. Yes. Jun Changxiao flipped through them. Tang Ren sat down and took a sip of tea and said, Master Jun, although there are first-rate sects participating in this dragon and tiger contest, you must also pay more attention to the disciples of second and third-rate sects. Jun Changxiao asked, why? Tang Ren said, the disciples sent by first-rate sects may not be top-notch. Only second and third-rate sects will go all out. For example, Jun Changxiao said. Tang Ren took out a copy of the information and said, for example, this second-rate Ao Shisheng sect sent its young master Ao Washang to participate in the contest. This person had already broken through to the Martial King several years ago and is very powerful. Ao Washang? Jun Changxiao wrote this person down. Tang Ren took out another copy of the information and said, there is also the Zhao Dazhuang. Zhao Dazhuang? Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. The sect disciples participating in the dragon and tiger contest were all excellent talents. How could someone give them such a lame name? Tang Ren said, although Zhao Dazhuang's name is ordinary, he has an indestructible body of diamond, and he is a very strong man. Indestructible body of diamond? Jun Changxiao was surprised. As a young man from modern times, he immediately thought of a way to break the move. 1. Kick the crotch. 2. Poke the eyes. And Jian Fian. Tang Ren said, this is a third-rate sword sect disciple who is obsessed with swordsmanship. It is said that he has comprehended the extreme of the word fast and is the fastest swordsman among the younger generation. There is also a disciple of Ling Xiao Saint sect. He has entered the realm of martial king at a young age and has comprehended the sect's martial arts to the extreme. He can use the saint level martial arts at will. He took out several materials one after another, all of which were the most eye-catching sect disciples participating in the dragon and tiger battle. Jun Changxiao said, the dragon and tiger battle is really a gathering of dragons and tigers. Tang Ren said, these are just the more outstanding disciples. In fact, the participating disciples of each sect are very strong. Since sect master Jun brought disciples to participate, he must not be careless. Yes. Jun Changxiao looked serious. The dragon and tiger contest is approaching. In the central area of the imperial city, the arena for the sect disciples to compete has begun to be built. It is a super large arena with viewing platforms around it, which can accommodate 500,000 warriors. The most amazing thing is that there is a mirror-like formation erected above the arena. Jun Changxiao learned from Tang Ren that this is an image formation, which can capture the battle in the venue and broadcast it in real time for the warriors in the city to watch. Damn. Live broadcast. Jun Changxiao said, will the battle scene be transmitted to other states? Yes. Tang Ren said, the dragon and tiger contest is the highest level sect competition in the Xingyan continent. At that time, all states and cities will uniformly set up image formations so that warriors can witness it in person. That's amazing. Jun Chang laughed. I didn't expect that the formation could be used to such an extent in the other world. Will it form a live broadcast mode or send barrage in the future? If we were even more awesome and could get in touch with the distant Earth and transmit the information to the internet, wouldn't it be possible for even the weaklings in combat to watch the battle scenes of the advanced martial arts world on their computers and mobile phones? Chapter 703 barely qualified. The efficiency of the dragon and tiger contest organizers was very fast. In just a few days, the venue for the competition was built. The viewing platform is divided into many levels, some for ordinary warriors, some for families and sects, and there is a VIP area for the participating sect leaders. As the sect master, Jun Changxiao is a VIP guest. At the same time, in the 9 states and counties, image formations were set up one after another. This is a very expensive project, because each formation requires a large number of formation masters to work together to arrange it. Of course, the city has to pay the organizer a broadcast fee for setting up an image formation. This live broadcast of each dragon and tiger contest is a very good income. Jun Changxiao stood in the courtyard, looking at the huge image formation, and said, if we can sponsor it, and put my Wanguzan recruitment slogan, it will definitely attract a lot of applicants. This idea is very earthling. Unfortunately, such a grand event does not allow advertising, otherwise it would be very fucked to insert an advertisement in a game. Master Jun. Tang Ren walked in, and asked in surprise, today is the registration day, why haven't you left yet? In fact, Yi Xiangxing had already reported the Wangu sect a few months ago. Now that the competition is about to start, the organizers naturally need to check whether the participating sects have arrived. No hurry, no hurry. Jun Changxiao said, there must be a lot of people at this time, wait a little longer. Tang happens to know the person in charge of registration. Tang Ren said, you don't have to let Master Jun queue up to register. Jun Changxiao said, then let's go. The registration and review point is located in the newly built arena. At this moment, many higher level sects have gathered here and are waiting for the organizer to review in order. Isn't this elderly? I haven't seen him for a while. Master Song's cultivation is even more powerful. The bigwigs of various sects will inevitably meet acquaintances, so they will communicate enthusiastically. Not long after, Tang Ren brought Jun Changxiao to the registration office and then entered a temporary tent. There were quite a few people inside, all of whom came to cut in line for a view. Tang Ren was a little embarrassed. I thought I could rely on my connections to help Sect Master Jun pass the review in advance, but I didn't expect that there were many sects that took shortcuts. Isn't this the second son of the Tang family? A young man laughed. The two old men standing next to him exuded a strong aura. They were elders of the Jinhuang Holy Sect who came to participate in the Dragon and Tiger competition. Because they were not from the Zhangzhou sect, they deliberately found the direct descendants of the Yan family to go through the back door, hoping to pass the review faster. Young Master Yan, Tang Ren said with a smile. The Yan family is a martial arts family in the Imperial City, and it is very powerful. This young Master Yan has always disliked the direct descendants of the family who do business, and he likes to say things that choke people. If it weren't for the fact that they both lived in the city and they would see each other every day, Tang Ren really didn't bother to pay attention to him. Second young Master Tang. Young Master Yan smiled and said, "Who is this?" "A friend of Tang." Tang Ren said indifferently. "Oh." Young Master Yan said with a smile. Young Master Tang brought him here. Could he be a high-ranking member of a sect participating in the Dragon and Tiger contest? Jun Chang said with a smile. Yes. The two elders of the Jinhuang Holy Sect behind him were immediately surprised when they heard this. This young man is no more than 20 years old. Could he be a high-ranking member of a sect? Which sect or sect are you from? Young Master Yan said. Jun Chang said with a smile. You are not qualified to know. If you want to ask, your parents must come in person. From the short conversation, he saw that young Master Yan was a little arrogant, with a hint of joking in his words. He was a very annoying guy. The best way to deal with such a person is to stop talking nonsense and ask him directly. I'm not qualified? Young Master Yan, who was arrogant, suddenly had a hint of anger in his eyes. My friend, an elder of the Jinhuang Holy Sect said indifferently. I wonder if I'm qualified to know? Who are you? A second-rate elder of the Jinhuang Holy Sect, Jun Changxiao. I'm barely qualified. I am? Barely? Jun Changxiao's face darkened, and he said in a cold voice, this young man is so arrogant. I wonder what kind of big sect he comes from. Not big. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, it's just a small Wangu sect. Wangu sect? Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, you are Jun Changxiao. Swish. Jun Changxiao opened the folding fan and said, yes, it's June. There was no decoration on the fan, only 4 words were written, handsome and compelling. There is no doubt that this was prepared by Jun Changxiao himself. He usually put it in the space ring and took it out to show off when he had nothing to do. When the warriors present saw the 4 words on the fan, they immediately had the urge to beat him up. It turned out to be Sect Master Jun. Jun Changxiao smiled coldly and said, excuse me. The Jinhuang Holy Sect came from Dong Hao's Hao. Some time ago, the Wangu sect challenged the Bei Holy Sect and abused the disciples of all the major sects there, which made many forces hate it. Master Yan said disdainfully, I thought he was some great figure, but it turns out he is just the leader of a 5th-rate sect. He must have heard of the Wangu sect. It is undeniable that it has done a lot of great things during this period. But there are many 1st and 2nd-rate sects participating in the Dragon and Tiger contest this time, which are enough to crush this emerging sect. For example, the Jinhuang Holy Sect. The overall strength is stronger than the Bei Holy Sect. People are still polite when they ask for help. How can a leader of a 5th-rate sect have the courage to think that he is not qualified to know where he comes from? Next. At this time, the old man sitting in the tent shouted. Master Yan glanced at Jun Changxiao coldly, and then took 2 elders of the Jinhuang Holy Sect to review. Master Jun. After passing the certification, Jun Changxiao passed by and whispered, you'd better pray that you don't meet my Jinhuang Holy Sect in the first round. Oh. Jun Changxiao replied. Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves and left. Master Yan also deliberately stopped when he passed by. He looked at Jun Changxiao, then at Master Tang, and shook his head and said, the friends made by the eldest master of the Tang family are all from first and second rate sects, but the second master of the Tang family is mixed with such sects. There is really no comparison. Master Yan. Tang Ren smiled and said, don't worry about my affairs. As a person who has been struggling in the business world, he naturally won't be easily emotional. Jun Changxiao. Master Yan said lightly, I hope that your arrogance and pride can be maintained until the end of the dragon and tiger competition, and I hope that you can leave happily, instead of running away with your disciples in disgrace. Jun Changxiao said, I will not let Master Yan down. I will definitely stick to the end and leave happily. Humph. Master Yan sneered and turned away. Master Tang. Jun Changxiao touched his nose and said, this guy is a bit annoying. Tang Ren said, Master Jun, don't pay attention to him. Not long after, it was Jun Changxiao's turn. He walked up and reported the tokens representing the sect and the number of disciples one by one. Just wait for the dragon and tiger contest in a few days. After returning to the mansion, Jun Changxiao continued to study the information of the major sects and deliberately found the Jinhuang Holy Sect. Seeing that the other party belonged to Donghao province, he understood why they were so weird to him. Alas. Taking Xiao Zuji to challenge the Lily Holy Sect was considered to have offended all the sects in this state. A few days later, the Dragon and Tiger contest venue was decorated with lights and was very lively. On the well-developed streets, many warriors rushed in, like a flood. Today is the day when the Dragon and Tiger contest begins. Jun Changxiao deliberately changed into a decent set of clothes, walked with his 8 character steps, and led his disciples to the venue in a swagger. Sect Master. Suzaomo's eyes were sharp, and she pointed ahead and said, people from Maihua Palace are here too. Jun Changxiao looked towards the huge crowd, and saw Zijingxian being supported by Leah, so he shook his head and said, it seems that the Pure Heart Holy Lotus did not cure her eye disease. Chapter 704 The competition is coming. Zijingxian, who looked quite fragile, walked in the crowd like a bright pearl, so dazzling. The warriors passing by would subconsciously look over and marvel at her appearance. However, after seeing the empty eyes of this woman, they couldn't help but guess that there might be something wrong with her eyes. No wonder she was supported. Alas. It is really sad that such a beautiful woman suffers from eye disease. Leah. Zijingxian, who was walking on the road, whispered, have you seen Sect Master Jun? Maihua Palace did not participate in the Dragon and Tiger competition, but Wangu Sect participated, so she rushed over after hearing the news. Palace Master. Leah said speechlessly, you have asked 800 times. Really? Zijingxian counted in her mind and said, I think it's only 80 times. Leah. Ever since the Palace Master met that guy, he has been thinking about him all the time. Could it be that he really has feelings for him? Leah. Zijingxian said, take a closer look. Leah said perfunctorily, Palace Master, there are too many people. She stopped talking here, because her peripheral vision happened to sweep to a direction, and saw Jun Changxiao walking over. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao said, what a coincidence, we met in the Great Emperor City. Hearing the familiar voice, Zijingxian turned around quickly, with a happy smile on her face, and said, Sect Master Jun. Leah. The Palace Master had insisted on going to the Holy Lily Sect before, but was forcibly stopped by the elders. Since then, she has been unhappy. Now she smiles when she meets that guy. This is definitely true love. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao transmitted the message. Is the Holy Lotus of Purity of Heart ineffective? Yeah. Zijingxian said. Jun Changxiao comforted her. Don't be discouraged. The disease will be cured sooner or later. Zijingxian smiled and said, I'm used to it. By the way, she said apologetically, before you took your disciples to challenge the Lily Holy Sect, I wanted to go to cheer, but I was delayed by the busy affairs of the sect. In fact, she wanted to go very much, but she was forcibly stopped by Changsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyu, saying that it was a feud between other sects. How could we get involved? Okay, then I won't go. But this time, when we go to Zhangzhou, you can't stop us again, right? Changsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyu couldn't stop us. After all, the Dragon and Tiger contest is the biggest event on the continent, and it's normal to come and watch the excitement. Jun Changxiao said, "It's okay." He was already very grateful for having this heart. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao said, "The Dragon and Tiger contest is about to start. I have to take my disciples to the venue together, so I'll leave first." Z Jinxian smiled and said, "Your sect's disciples will definitely get good results." "Thank you." Jun Changxiao took his disciples and went ahead. "Senior brother." On the way, Li Fei whispered, "This Palace Master Z seems to be interested in the sect master." Suzaomo said, "I've seen it a long time ago. Palace Master Z and our sect master are quite a good match." Li Fei said. "Pat." Jun Changxiao hit him on the head and said, "The Dragon and Tiger contest will start soon, so focus on the right things." "Yes." Li Fei said, covering his head. The Dragon and Tiger contest venue. After Jun Changxiao took out his competition badge, he walked in under the guidance of a special person. Just like the previous Qingyang County competition, all participating disciples will be placed in several specific areas before the competition begins. Sect Master Jun. The guide said, "The disciples have been arranged. Please follow me to the viewing platform." "Yes." Before Jun Changxiao left, he looked at the disciples and reminded them, "Since you are participating, play it seriously, and don't take it lightly." "Yes." The disciples shouted in unison. The Dragon and Tiger contest, where geniuses gather, they will definitely take it seriously. Long Xiang clenched his fists, his eyes burning as he said, "I'm a little excited." "Me too," Song Zuanzhao said. Thinking about the fact that they would soon be competing with the geniuses of various sects in public, they could no longer control their emotions. Even more excited than them were the warriors from the counties and cities of Yangzhou in the southwest. Although the image formation had not been activated and was still blank, there were already crowds of people below. Previous years. There will be many people watching, but this session is undoubtedly the most watched, because the one who represents Southwest Yangzhou in the Dragon and Tiger contest is the Wanggu sect that has risen like a comet. This sect has brought too many surprises and shocks to everyone. They all hope to break the curse and successfully advance to the second round. So, Wanggu sect is not fighting for itself. That group of young and energetic disciples carries the expectations of all the people in Southwest Yangzhou. Longyang City, Long family. Long Potian stood in the courtyard, looking at the suspended formation. Although he was shocked, his hands were actually shaking violently. "Master," an elder said, "don't be excited." Long Potian couldn't control his emotions and said loudly, "Ziyang represents Wanggu sect in the Dragon and Tiger contest. It is the honor of my family. How can I not be excited?" The elder was silent. "Our Master Long is still strong enough." Master Li and the old man of the Song family are so excited that they can hardly stand. As a father who doesn't want his children to have a great future. Now, Li Qingyang and Song Zuanzhao will represent Southwest Yangzhou in the Dragon and Tiger contest and will compete with the continent's top geniuses. That is a great honor. My son has participated in the Dragon and Tiger contest. This sentence, this thing, is enough to brag about for a lifetime. In the VIP area of the viewing platform, Jun Changxiao walked in under the guidance of a special person, and then found a seat belonging to the Eternal Ancient Sect and sat down. This is the best viewing area, and any fighting platform in the center of the field can be seen. Many sect leaders have already taken their seats in the VIP area. They all looked at Jun Changxiao who had just entered, secretly thinking, is this the leader of the Eternal Ancient Sect who has been thriving recently? At such a young age, he has the cultivation of the double king of sword and martial arts, which is also a rare genius. Duan Zishao of the Jinhuangsane sect was also present. He smiled coldly and said to himself, "I really hope that the opponent in the first round is the Eternal Ancient Sect." Many bigwigs thought so too. After all, among all the sects, only the Eternal Ancient Sect belongs to the fifth rate. If they encounter such an opponent, they will undoubtedly enter the second round with the least consumption. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes to rest. If he knew that the leaders of each sect hoped to be matched with his own sect, he would definitely laugh. I dare not guarantee that the first and second rate sects will be matched, but if they are matched with third and fourth rate sects, My disciples can beat your disciples to death. But suddenly, the image formation erected in the air shook, and the scene in the venue gradually appeared in it. At the same time, the formation arranged in the city of the mainland also began to show the image screen. It's turned on. Finally you can watch it. The warriors of various states and cities suddenly became excited. However, after the picture was completely clear, a big face suddenly appeared in the image formation, and then he stroked his hair very coquettishly, saying, "Wangu Sect recruits students all year round. Those who are interested can come to Qingyang County for consultation." Swish, swish. Two martial emperor level strongmen flew over, holding Jun Changxiao's arms on both sides, and pulling him back. "Come on, young man." Although he was dragged away, he still shouted at the image formation, "Join my sect, and let's fly our dreams together." Audience at the venue. Audiences from all over the continent. Yi Xiangxing, Sita Heoan, Ma Yunteng and others watched Sect Master Jun being carried away by two strong men, and their mouths twitched violently. This kind of thing of promoting the sect in front of the image formation, I'm afraid only he can think of and do it. Chapter 705, Admission, the Boiling Qingyang County. In previous dragon and tiger contests, the image formation would be activated first for all warriors to watch. However, after the formation was activated this time, the scene that appeared in everyone's eyes was not the competition venue, but Jun Changxiao's handsome face, and he openly advertised in front of the camera. This suffocating operation was really unexpected. Fortunately, the organizers had strong emergency response capabilities. When they saw someone approaching the formation, they hurriedly sent two martial emperors to pull the bitch down. As a result, people all over the continent saw Jun Changxiao being forcibly taken away by the doctor like a severely mentally ill patient. The one who was just taken away was the leader of the Wangu Sect? So he is really that young. He dares to promote his own sect in the upcoming dragon and tiger contest? He must be the first person in ancient and modern times. Jiang Gaosheng appeared on the formation screen, and everyone remembered it instantly, and also remembered the recruitment words he just shouted. "Join my sect and let your dreams fly together." It seems very interesting. Many young people have developed a strong interest in the Wangu Sect. This is the power of advertising. Although many people will ignore it, there will always be people who will take it to heart. So, it is effective for Sect Master Jun to force a wave of advertising at the risk of being expelled. I admire you. Tang Ren's eyes were full of admiration. The battle between dragons and tigers has begun, and it must be noticed by the world. If he goes up to promote his sect like this, it will definitely bring huge benefits. If the pill store he opened can also be promoted on the formation, it will definitely be popular throughout the continent. Wait. The image formation is set up in the sky. How did Sect Master Jun get up there? The leaders of the various sects present also realized this problem, so when they saw that guy being dragged down by two strong men, they all exclaimed, "He is the martial emperor." Regarding Jun Changxiao's strength, the outside world has always believed that he is at the level of the sword and martial arts kings. Even if someone has seen him flying, they just think that he used the wings like treasure. Now, he is suddenly hanging in front of the formation without any props, and he must have flown up with real strength. A strong man said solemnly, "If the sword and martial arts twin kings want to break through, they must comprehend the sword and martial arts to the extreme." Could that guy be the sword and martial arts twin emperor now? Someone rejected it and said, "The birth of the sword and martial arts twin emperors will definitely cause strange phenomena." Recently, the entire continent has been calm as usual. How could he be the sword and martial arts twin emperor? Yes, many high-level officials of the sects agreed. In Qingyang City, the strange phenomena caused by that guy's breakthrough to the sword and martial arts twin kings were witnessed by most of the world. If he breaks through to the twin emperors again, it will definitely be even more massive. Could it be that he realized that the sword and martial arts twin kings have too many restrictions and finally chose to give up one? Possibly. That guy should be the martial emperor now, and the swordsmanship should be completely wiped out. Everyone discussed it. The leader of the Wangu sect only has the cultivation of the martial emperor, which is the most acceptable and reasonable for them. However, at such an age, breaking through to the martial emperor, it also shocked the bigwigs of the sects. No wonder that the unknown sect rose overnight. It turned out that the leader himself was not an ordinary person. Plop. Jun Changxiao sat back in his seat, leaned back in his chair, and said angrily, "You didn't even let me finish my words. How annoying." Everyone's mouth twitched slightly. It was already good enough that he didn't get kicked out of such a sacred event by forcing an advertisement. He actually had the nerve to throw a tantrum. Everyone. At this moment, a heavy voice rang out in the venue. On the high platform in the center of the venue, a middle-aged man in brocade clothes appeared at some point, bowed his hands and smiled. "Welcome to participate in this dragon and tiger contest. I would like to thank you all again. Han Dongsheng, the Lord of Dazan Imperial City. He was responsible for hosting this dragon and tiger contest." The Lord of the city appeared, which meant that the competition was about to begin, so the audience in the venue suddenly became excited. "It is an honor for my Dazan Imperial City to host the dragon and tiger contest this time," Lord Han said with a smile, and then he introduced the glorious history of the event in detail. There is no way such a big event must follow the process. Many audiences were drowsy after listening. Next, City Lord Han, who had been talking for most of the day, suddenly changed the subject and said, "Please invite the participating sect disciples to enter." Swish, swish. In an instant, the drowsy audience became energetic, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. It started. The warriors in each city also became excited. Not long after, young men with extraordinary bravery appeared on the light screen of the image formation. Whenever a disciple of a sect appeared on the stage, someone would shout out the name of the sect, and the audience would cheer enthusiastically. The next one to appear is the Wangu sect. An old man introduced in a deep voice. This sect has a total of 25 participating disciples, and it is also the only sect in southwest Yangzhou that will participate in the competition. The viewing platform suddenly became quiet. Most of them came from other sects, or were family members of contestants, so they naturally would not cheer for a sect they did not know. Eternal Sect. Eternal Sect. In Qingyang City, deafening cheers came from the crowded streets. Loud shouts also rang out from the other 7 cities. Although no one from the Eternal Sect cheered at the venue, there were tens of millions of people in Qingyang County cheering for them. Amid the cheers of the elders and villagers, 25 disciples of the Eternal Sect, led by Lu Qian Qian and Li Qingyang, walked out along the passage. The image formation gave each disciple a close-up shot, causing the entire Qingyang County to fall into a boiling state again. Patriarch. An old man said excitedly, "It's the young master." Patriarch Li struggled to stabilize his body, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. When the 100 sects recruited, Li Qingyang insisted on joining the Iron Bone Sect, which made him very angry. Now standing on the highest level sect competition stage, he deeply realized how far-sighted his son was. "Master, the young master is out." When Song Zuantao's camera close-up appeared on the light curtain of the formation, old Master Song was sitting on a chair, because the excitement in his heart could no longer support his old body. The child's father is Xiaomo. A couple in their 50s, stood in the crowd, watching their son walk out with his head held high, their eyes already blurred with tears. Ziyang is out. When Long Ziyang appeared on the light curtain, the direct line of the Long family was immediately excited. The happiest one must be the Wangu sect. At this moment, tens of thousands of disciples sat together in the martial arts arena, concentrating on looking at the light curtain in front of the hall, and when they saw their senior sisters and brothers coming out, they danced and cheered. Old man. Old Wei frowned and said, "You secretly intercepted the image formation. It will be troublesome if you are discovered." Zendejan vowed, "If I can be discovered, I will eat bricks alive." A disciple from the distant Taixu Unholy Sect said in surprise, "The woman who just flashed from the formation seems a little familiar." Lu Qian Qian. TSK. This woman who was expelled actually worshipped as a disciple of the Wangu sect. From a first-rate sect to a fifth-rate sect, this is really miserable. Tap tap. From a distant perspective, the disciples of the Wangu sect all climbed onto the high platform in the center of the venue. The 25 of them stood in a row, with their hands behind their backs, and their bodies exuded a strong momentum. The disciples of the sect who entered the venue first turned their heads and looked over. Is this a disciple of the Wangu sect? Although the spirit and energy exuded are very good, the momentum is a little weak. If they meet in the competition, they should be able to defeat them easily. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others were also looking at the contestants at the venue. They especially felt the heavy aura they exuded, and their blood started to burn. My dears. Jun Changxiao raised his legs and put them on the chair in front of him, saying, use your strength to prove yourself. Chapter 706. First round opponent. Exciting. Li Qingyang and others are used to practicing hermit cultivation anytime and anywhere, so their momentum seems very ordinary. On the other hand, other disciples who entered the sect did their best to show their strongest side in such a grand event. It's useless. You can only know whether they are strong or not after fighting. Xiao Zuji has been watching the disciples who entered the sect later until he saw the rough man who asked for directions earlier. His eyes suddenly flashed with a strong desire to fight. Intuition told him that this would be a very good opponent. The rough man also looked over and grinned. There was no verbal communication between the two, only eye contact. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, from the information, he should be Zhao Dazhuang, a disciple of the Iron Fist Sect. Iron Fist Sect. A third-rate sect. They mainly practice boxing, especially in physical shaping. This disciple named Zhao Dazhuang has an indestructible body. If he meets his own disciples, he should be able to stage a wonderful battle. I'm looking forward to it. Jun Chang smiled. As the organizers continued to call out the sects, more and more contestants entered the venue. TSK. A warrior who exuded arrogance stood lazily on the high platform and said, they are all trash. It's nothing but a waste of time to come to this kind of competition. His name is Ao Washang, the young master of the Ao Shisheng sect. Although this guy is very arrogant, he has real talent. He broke through to the king of martial arts a few years ago. In his words, if he was interested in playing the heroes gathering list, he would have occupied the top spot on the Cheyenne Z list by now. Ao Washang looked at a warrior in the distance and said disdainfully, trash. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others twitched their mouths. Because the trash that this guy standing not far away was Yi Xingchen. On weekdays, junior brother always called him trash, but now he was actually called trash by others. Are you talking about me? Yi Xingchen's face darkened. Ao Washang said calmly, what? You don't admit it when I say you're trash? Crack. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists and said in a low voice, you'd better not meet me, otherwise, I'll tear your mouth apart. Hey. Ao Washang said, I didn't realize that you're more arrogant than me. Yi Xingchen said no more. With his personality, he would never fight a useless war with the trash. Boy, you'd better pray that you don't meet me, otherwise I'll make you live or die. The major sects entered one after another. As the finale, it must be the 5 first-class sects. Although they didn't send the strongest disciples to fight, the momentum they exuded after they appeared on the stage still made many contestants feel pressured. The leaders of the various sects on the viewing platform prayed silently in their hearts that when they draw lots later, they must not draw the first-class sects, otherwise they will be cold in the first round. TSK. Ao Washang said disdainfully, it's still trash. He doesn't even look down on the disciples of the first-class sects. This buddy is really arrogant. All the 200 sects participating in the Dragon and Tiger contest were in place, with 5,000 contestants on the central platform. You must be waiting impatiently. City Lord Han said loudly, so without further ado, please ask the disciples of each sect to come out and draw the first round of opponents. Here we go, here we go. I don't know which sect will be the unlucky one, as they will draw a first-rate sect as their first round opponent. The warriors watching the battle watched intently. Junior brother Lu Qian said, you go. As the eldest disciple of the sect, she should have represented the eternal ancient sect to draw the opponent, but because of her personality, she didn't like to show up in public. Yes. Li Qingyang stood up and walked over. Senior brother Suzaomo shouted, we must draw a better opponent. The disciples of the nearby sects laughed when they heard this. A 5th-rate sect at the bottom would encounter a sect stronger than itself, no matter how it drew. What better opponent could it encounter? They misunderstood. The better opponents that Suzaomo mentioned were not weak. but stronger overall, so that they would have the desire to fight. Master Jun. On the viewing platform, Jun Changxiao smiled faintly and said, "It's better if your sect's disciples don't draw my Jinhuang Holy Sect." Really? Jun Chang smiled and said to himself, "King Guiyang, have better luck. You must draw the Jinhuang Holy Sect for me, and then beat them like dogs." Trample. Li King Guiyang stood on the drawing platform. It was a square box with only a hole that could accommodate a palm. There were many sect signs inside. The one you drew would be your opponent in the first round. Li King Guiyang took a deep breath. This grab will determine the opponent of the sect. It's okay to draw a fourth-rate sect, but it will be depressing to draw a first-rate sect. Li Dazangwen is under great pressure. Even more stressed than him is Yi Xiangxing, who is in Xianyuking City. At this time, his heart is in his throat. In previous dragon and tiger competitions, the sects sent were absolutely black in the draw. For example, in the last one, the opponent drawn was a second-rate sect and was eliminated in the first round. For example, in the last one, although the opponent drawn was a fourth-rate sect, it came from Zhangzhou and was eliminated in the first round. God bless. Yi Xiangxing prayed secretly, "I must draw a fourth-rate sect from another state." Swish. Li King Guiyang raised his hand and reached into the draw box. There were tokens inside, with restrictions on them, and it was impossible to use spiritual thoughts to spy on what was written. Swish. Li King Guiyang quickly retracted his hand. The process was very short, and Yi Xiangxing subconsciously closed his eyes. "I dare not look. I dare not look." The opponent of the eternal ancient sect is, at this moment, the deep voice of Han Shengzhu came from the light screen of the formation. Dayan Shengzang. Plop. Yi Xiangxing fell directly to the ground and said in despair, "A first-class sect. It's over. It's over." Mu Changhan collapsed and said, "5 first-class sects were drawn. That kid must not have washed his hands when he went to the toilet." The originally lively King Guiyang County became unusually quiet in an instant after Han Shengzhu called out the name of the first-class sect. "This luck." Ma Yunteng covered his forehead and said, "No one else can do it." The leaders of various sects in the Dragonarch domination venue were also extremely frustrated. After all, they did not draw themselves to be the first round opponents. This newly rising sect actually drew the Dayan Shengzang. No hope, no hope. Southwest Yangzhou still cannot change its fate of being eliminated in the first round. Everyone immediately started to discuss it. Among them, many warriors who were optimistic about the eternal ancient sect becoming a dark horse shook their heads and sighed helplessly. If this top 3 sect meets a fourth-rate sect from another state, it may be able to advance, but if it encounters a first-rate sect in the first round, it will definitely be in trouble. For a moment, the entire audience locked their eyes on Li King Guiyang, and even the image formation was given a close-up. He was directly drawn to a first-rate sect. This guy's really lucky. "Hey." Li King Guiyang shook his head, then turned around and looked at his fellow disciples with a helpless look, saying, "I tried my best." Kaka, Zio Zuji, Suzaomo and others shook their heads and clenched their fists, grinning. "This is exciting." Are they laughing? The audience widened their eyes. According to the previous plot, they should not cry or despair if they are drawn to a first-rate sect in the first round. Jun Changxiao was also confused. Hehe. Suddenly, laughter came from the side. Jun Changxiao turned his head hurriedly and saw Jun Changxiao leaning on a chair with his legs crossed. He covered his face with one hand and laughed strangely. "It's really exciting to fight a first-rate sect in the first round." The disciples of the Wangu sect went crazy, and the leader of the Wangu sect went crazy too. P.S. Please vote. Chapter 707. Wangu Zhang. Hold on. When Li King Guiyang drew the first-rate Dayan Shengzang, everyone believed that this dark horse sect was going to be in trouble. However, when the audience saw the disciples of the Wangu Zhang grinning one by one, and even their eyes were full of strong fighting spirit, they were dumbfounded again. Are they crazy? Or, facing the first-rate sect in the first round, they knew that there was no hope of winning, so they forced a smile? In this case, it is understandable. The disciples of the Wangu Zhang really don't want to meet the first-rate sect in the first round. After all, such a grand event is interesting to fight from weak to strong. However, since there is no choice, they have to fight. Suzaomo and other disciples who did not take action when challenging the Lily Shengzang. Their blood is completely boiling at this moment. Fighting a first-rate sect in the first round is undoubtedly very exciting. It's over. It's over. Yi Xiangxing's eyes were full of despair. Drawing a first-rate sect in the first round is definitely the most unfavorable time for the Yangzhou sect in the southwest in the history of the Dragon and Tiger contest. At that moment, he hoped that the opponent drawn by the Eternal Ancient Sect would be a third or fourth-rate sect in Zhongzhou, so that there would at least be a glimmer of hope. Although the Great Yansheng sect did not send out the strongest lineup, the disciples it brought were also very strong. The Eternal Ancient Sect will definitely lose. When a fifth-rate sect meets a first-rate sect, you can figure out what the outcome will be with just a little thought. The Great Yansheng sect is equivalent to being directly promoted to the second round. When many warriors were discussing, they all looked at the disciples of the Great Yansheng sect in the center of the field. Sure enough, they saw smiles on their faces, and even when they looked at the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect, they showed a sneer. "Brother," a disciple said lightly, "meeting a fifth-rate sect in the first round is really not challenging at all. Just right." Someone said, "You can save some energy to deal with the opponents later." In the eyes of the disciples of the Great Yansheng sect, the only ones who can cause trouble for them are the second-rate sects and the other 4 first-rate sects. If they meet the sects of other levels, they will just be sent food. However, in the eyes of Sect Master Jun, this sect is also a delivery. No. To be precise, it is a delivery of warmth. Because when Li Qingyang drew the Dayan Shengzang, the side quest was triggered. The quest content is very simple. Defeat this first-class sect in the Dragon and Tiger contest, and if you complete it, you will be rewarded with 2 experience symbols. In the past, the reward was given immediately after completion. This time, the side quest was clearly marked with a price. No wonder Jun Gaosheng covered his face and laughed strangely after seeing it. Defeat this sect and get the reward, and you can use 2 experience symbols to break through a grade. What are you waiting for? Disc him, disc him, disc him. At that moment, Jun Changxiao's face was almost distorted. Jun Changxiao, who was unaware of it, thought that he might realize that his opponent was too strong and could not bear the blow, and he was almost crazy. Alas, how pitiful. The drawing of lots continued. One after another, representatives of the sects selected their opponents. Of course, many people were happy because they were drawn to a low-level sect, while others were desperate because they were drawn to a top sect. Let's not waste any more time. After the draw, City Lord Han said loudly, "The first round of the Dragon and Tiger contest begins now." Bang, bang. As soon as the words fell, fireworks suddenly bloomed in the sky above the venue. It's finally started. After the fireworks festival ended, warriors from all over the continent instantly became excited. The first round, the first battle, the Eternal Ancient Sect versus the Great Yansheng Sect. Please invite the disciples of both sides to enter. This grand event, coupled with the deep and penetrating voice of City Lord Han, rendered the atmosphere to the extreme. Swish, swish. The 25 disciples of the Great Yansheng Sect appeared on the martial arts stage used for the duel, causing the audience to cheer enthusiastically. The first-class sects have a lot of fans. In contrast, the 25 disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect took the stage, and the entire venue suddenly became quiet. It didn't matter if there were no audiences to cheer, because when Li Qingyang and others appeared in the light curtain, Qingyang County suddenly erupted in thunderous shouts. Although the situation is very grim for the Wanggu sect, which was drawn to a first-class sect, however, the warriors and even ordinary people in Qingyang County will regard them as heroes and cheer for them with all their passion. Wanggu sect, hold on. A warrior shouted heartbreakingly. Wanggu sect, hold on. Wanggu sect, hold on. The shouts from countless people shook the sky of Qingyang County. Even some 3 or 4-year-old children, infected by the atmosphere, clenched their fists and shouted at the light curtain in a baby voice, "Wanggu sect, hold on." Representatives of both sides. An old man stepped onto the stage and said, "Is it a single fight or a big fight? In every Dragon and Tiger contest, there will be many disciples participating in the competition. The way to decide the winner can be a one-on-one duel or a multi-person melee. In fact, there were single and team competitions at the beginning, but it was too time consuming later, so the two events were combined to let the contestants make their own choices. Whatever. Li Qingyang said. Suzuomo and others behind him were full of fighting spirit. For them, no matter fighting alone or in a group, as long as they can have fun, that's all that matters. The leading disciple of Dayan Shengzong said calmly, it's a waste of time to fight 25 people one by one. Why not have a big fight? Okay. Li Qingyang said. The old man announced loudly, in the first round of the first battle of the dragon and tiger contest, both contestants choose a big fight. Big fight? Wang Guzhang is really brave. They dare to fight a group fight with a first-class sect. I'm afraid they don't want to waste time. They will lose and die quickly so that they can pack up and go home. While everyone was discussing, the disciples of Dayan Shengzong had dispersed one after another, and a stream of strong spiritual energy instantly spread. Oh my god. All of them are martial kings. Nonsense. This is a first-class sect. Only ordinary disciples came. If the most elite disciples were sent, there would be no need for other sects to participate. When the disciples of Dayan Shengzong entered the combat state and burst out their martial king cultivation, the venue immediately entered the first small climax after the start of the competition. The image formation is a bit naughty. At this time, the camera turned to the disciples of Wang Guzhang. It seemed that they wanted to let the world see what kind of desperate expressions they would have on their faces in front of the 25 martial kings of the Great Yan Holy Sect. There was no despair. There was endless fighting spirit. Li Qingyang, who was standing at the front, raised his hand lightly. Xiao Zuji, Yi Xingchen and others scattered one after another, each locking onto a disciple of the Great Yan Holy Sect, with a smile or disdain on their lips. The game begins. At this moment, the referee shouted loudly, "Go." The disciple of the Great Yan Holy Sect shouted. However, as soon as the voice fell, a gust of wind blew, and Suzuomo approached in an instant, and swept his right foot infused with spiritual energy directly over. Boom. Ding ding ding. The disciple of the Great Yan Holy Sect staggered and retreated with his hands in a staggered state, his eyes full of astonishment. Trample. Suzuomo almost rode over, soaring into the air, and a series of footprints suddenly burst out in the air, pressing down like a net. Boom. 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 The violent footprints blasted down again and again. The disciple of the Great Yan Sheng Sect could only open the air wall to fight against it. Although he managed to resolve it without any danger, he retreated more than 10 steps. Boom. On the other side, there was a loud explosion. Xiao Zuji, whose whole body was filled with earth-type spiritual energy, was bombarding his opponent with great force. With each attack, a nearly materialized afterimage filled the air. The audience widened their eyes. The fight had just begun, and the fighting power shown by the two disciples of the Wangu sect seemed to be no weaker than that of the disciples of the Great Yansheng sect. Boom. At this moment, there was another explosion in the light curtain. Everyone looked over and saw that a disciple of the Great Yansheng sect had fallen down on the edge of the ring. Yi Xingchen stopped in front of him and said lightly, "Trash." Bang. He kicked him. The disciple of the Great Yansheng sect flew out gorgeously and then fell outside the fighting stage with his teeth bared. Eliminated. Out. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 708, Great Evolution Spiritual Array. Maybe because a duel between the 5th-rate and 1st-rate sects is very topical, the organizer let the Eternal Ancient Sect and the Dayan Holy Sect start the first round of the first battle of the Dragon and Tiger competition. Indeed. Very topical. Because when Yi Xingchen eliminated a disciple of the Dayan Holy Sect in the most clean and neat way, the whole continent was immediately in a boiling state. A martial king level disciple of a first-rate sect was eliminated at the beginning of the competition. This is simply unimaginable. How is it possible? The eyes of the leaders of each sect were full of surprise. Although the disciples sent by the Dayan Holy Sect were not top-notch, they were genuine martial kings after all. If they could be defeated quickly, how strong must the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect be? He is Yi Xingchen. The guy who never flowed in and killed into the earth level list of the heroes gathering list in the shortest time. That's him. No wonder he is so powerful. When the warriors from all walks of life recognized Yi Xingchen, the shock in their hearts was weakened a lot. In a short time, he killed his way into the top of the human level list and the earth level list. This disciple of the eternal ancient sect is definitely powerful. Crack. In a corner of a city, a man in a black robe saw Yi Xingchen defeat his opponent from the light screen and said hatefully, "This guy has become stronger again." However, he smiled coldly and said, "During this period, I have also undergone earth-shaking changes. Yi Xingchen, Wang Guzang. Sooner or later, I will trample you under my feet and trample you hard." Hey. On the viewing platform, Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "It's not challenging. Although the disciples sent by Dai and Shengzang are all martial kings, their overall strength is not even worthy of carrying shoes for their own disciples. That's how confident, that's how arrogant." However, Jun Changxiao, who was sitting next to him, changed his face again and again. He thought that after the game started, the disciples of Wang Guzan would be doubted in seconds, but the result was that one person from Dai and Shengzang was eliminated as soon as he came up. It's okay, it's okay. This has just begun, and there are still 24 disciples. When they fight seriously, Wang Guzan will definitely end up being. Boom. There was another explosion on the fighting stage, interrupting Jun Changxiao's thinking. He raised his head in a hurry and saw a disciple of Dai and Shengzang being directly beaten out by Xiao Ziji. Another one is eliminated. My god, this speed is too fast. The audience was dumbfounded. The first disciple of Dai and Zhang was eliminated, which could be attributed to underestimating the enemy, but the second disciple was eliminated, which was obviously difficult to match in strength. The most tragic thing is, during the entire fight, he was always on the defensive and was blasted out without making an effective counterattack. Interesting. Xiao Dazuan was always looking at Xiao Ziji. Seeing him use the most horizontally trained physical body to knock the opponent away, his eyes suddenly showed a strong desire to fight. Swish. Xiao Ziji retracted his hand and looked at him in the same way. Although the two were far apart, their eye contact seemed to collide with passionate sparks. Qingyang County. When Yi Xingchen and Xiao Ziji, a pair of good fellows, defeated the disciples of Dai and Shengzi one after another, they had completely fallen into absolute madness. Some people with temperament even pulled their shirts and shouted loudly. In all previous dragon and tiger contests, no matter it was a single fight or a group fight, the disciples of the sects who represented Southwest Yangzhou all lost. Now that the first round of the battle has just begun, the Eternal Ancient Sect has eliminated 2 contestants in the melee, and they are first-class disciples of the Dai and Shengzang. This undoubtedly set a record and broke the embarrassment. Master. Elder Zhao said excitedly, the Eternal Ancient Sect has eliminated another one. Yi Xiangxing, who was standing in front, did not speak, but his body was shaking violently. At this moment, he was so excited that he could not control himself. Boom. Boom. In the formation screen, the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect have already fought with the disciples of the Dai and Shengzang. The light flashed, and the spiritual energy spread. The more the audience watched, the wider their eyes widened. In imagination, if a 5th-rate sect went to war with a 1st-rate sect, they would definitely be abused to the point of having no desire to live. But reality gave them a hard slap in the face. This 5th-rate sect disciple, in a fight with a 1st-rate sect disciple, not only was he not abused, but he quickly gained the upper hand. Hoo-hoo. Long Xiang strode out, unleashing the mountain collapse and earth-splitting fist. Shine Qi, Song Zuantao and the others were also releasing their spiritual energy and their sect's martial arts to their heart's content. They didn't care that their opponent was a 1st-rate sect, they only cared that they could have a good fight at this moment. Eternal Shadowless Kick. Mountain Collapse and Earth-Splitting Fist. Red Sky Fiery Slash. Boom. 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 The martial arts of the disciples of the Eternal Sect were released together, bursting with brilliant and gorgeous light. Because it was rare to encounter a strong opponent, they did not defeat the opponent directly like Yi Xingchen and Xiao Ziji, but kept suppressing the opponent, so that they could fight for a while longer. Damn it. A disciple of the Dai and Sheng sect shouted, form a formation. Swish, swish. Everyone gathered together and kept a certain distance. Looking down from above, you can see that they have already set up a strange formation. Daein spiritual illusion formation. This is a high-level combination of martial arts. I didn't expect it to be used at the beginning of the fight. The strength of the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect is not weak. If they don't make a real move, it will be difficult to turn the tide. While everyone was discussing, 20 to 30 disciples of the Daein Holy Sect burst out their cultivation at the same time, and then quickly connected in series. For a moment, the entire fighting stage was suddenly covered with vast spiritual energy. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, the spiritual energy gathered together, and then transformed into an extremely huge Dharma image, and turned out 6 thick and long arms. It's out, Ling Huanzun. The Dharma image condensed by so many disciples of Daein Shengzang. The strength is probably not weaker than a peak martial king, right? This is the foundation of a first-class sect. Looking at the huge Dharma image that gathered, Jun Changxiao said with interest, "It's a bit interesting." "A bit interesting?" Jun Changxiao said coldly, "Master Jun, I'm afraid you don't know that when this combination of martial arts is performed, the explosive power is very terrifying. I can see it." Jun Chang smiled. Judging from the momentum, the condensed Dharma image is probably not inferior to the peak martial king. But, so what? My disciples in the secret realm of life and death all practiced with spirit beasts comparable to martial emperors. A mere peak martial king is really not enough. Hoo-hoo. Ling Huanzun suddenly waved his 2 big hands and smashed down fiercely at the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect. The power he carried instantly stirred the space and gradually distorted it. The big hand pressed down, and the sky was gloomy. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect who were huddled together were indifferent, and even showed disdain at the corners of their mouths. Why don't they get out of the way? Step. Ziozuji took a step forward, and stood behind his fellow disciples. He suddenly spread his arms, and gathered the earth-type spiritual energy in his palms. From the light screen, this man seemed like an indestructible wall. Hoo-hoo. Ling Huanzun pressed down with 2 big hands. Ziozuji's shirt tore apart, and the earth-type spiritual energy burst out from every inch of his solid muscles, and then turned into 2 big hands, directly grabbing the big hands that pressed down. Why didn't the pants break? Go ask Kakarot. Crack, crack, crack. After catching the 2 heavy hands, the floor under Ziozuji's feet instantly collapsed. The audience opened their mouths together. Get up. At this moment, Ziozuji's veins burst out, and his arms suddenly exerted force. Hoo-hoo. Ling Huanzun was directly lifted up, and the 23 disciples of Daein Shengzi who were responsible for blessing couldn't help but take a step forward, their eyes suddenly filled with horror. The Dharma image condensed by so many of us was actually dragged away by him alone. What a strong physical strength this must have. Ah. Ziozuji, with his upper body exposed, roared angrily, and the power of his arms burst out crazily. Ling Huanzun was directly pulled up, and then drew a graceful arc, and fell headfirst onto the other end of the fighting stage. Chapter 709. Don't waste time. End the battle quickly. Boom. Ling Huanzun directly pulled up from the ground, and fell headfirst to the ground. The warriors who watched this scene through the image formation had their eyes wide open. The audience in the venue could see it directly, so their mouths were open wide enough to stuff a few eggs. If it was to throw the warrior over the shoulder, it would be understandable. But Ling Huanzun is a Dharma image gathered by spiritual energy, not a physical beast. The disciple of the Eternal Ancient Sect actually pulled it up with his bare hands, and then fell headfirst to the ground. This is too shocking. Moreover, it was condensed by 23 martial kings. Too explosive. Too terrifying. Who? The strong momentum spread from the dual stage. Ziozuji exposed his upper body, with his back to the image formation, explaining to the warriors of the whole continent what it means to have the strength to pull mountains and the courage to conquer the world. At that moment, the warriors watching the battle had only 2 words to evaluate this extremely explosive disciple of the Eternal Ancient Sect. Awesome. Distant Lily Holy Sect. When Ziozuji defeated the Dharma images of 23 martial kings with his mighty strength, the entire sect fell into silence. The Holy Lily sect had originally signed up to participate in the Dragon and Tiger contest. Later, one of the most outstanding disciples was defeated by Ziozuji, which was a great disgrace, so they had to apply for cancellation. Master Murung's stood in the back mountain, looking at the back of the man on the screen, and said bitterly, when he came to fight, he didn't use his full strength. Yes. At that time, Ziozuji didn't really move. He came to the Holy Lily sect to regain the dignity he had lost, that's all. Cheng Huxin's eyes flashed with anger. I thought that the disciples still had the possibility of continuing to practice and surpass Ziozuji, but now from the strength of that guy, the gap between the two has been widening. Damn it. Cheng Huxin was very unwilling. However, she had to accept the fact that the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect were getting stronger and stronger. Brother Zio, you are mighty. Brother Zio, you are mighty. On Tegu Mountain, when Ziozuji fell to Ling Huanzhen, more than 10,000 disciples shouted in unison. Ha ha ha. Liu Wan, she danced with a spoon in her hand. Poor Yehi and Ahi, they stood in front of the stove, their faces covered with vegetable leaves. Back to the arena. After Ziozuji knocked Ling Huanzhen down, the disciples of Dai and Shengzan couldn't control their bodies and stumbled forward by inertia. When they stabilized their bodies and looked at the disciple of Wang Guzhang, fear suddenly rose in their eyes. This man is too scary. Form a formation. A disciple of Dai and Shengzan shouted angrily. Swish, swish. More than 20 people adjusted their positions and stimulated their spiritual energy to the extreme. Ling Huanzhen, who fell to the ground, stood up again. Swish, swish, swish. 8 arms waved, carrying a force of 10,000 kilograms, and blasting towards Ziozuji. They were very angry. The Dharma image was also stimulated to the extreme. Kakaka. Ziozuji, who had his back to Ling Huanzhen, was shrouded in light, and the materialized black armor gathered in an instant. Hoo at this moment, Ling Huanzhen's fist came down first, and the power it carried instantly shook the ground to pieces. Bang. Yang Yuhe rushed over in a flash, stood in front of senior brother Zio, and stretched out his palms suddenly, directly catching the heavy fist. Kakaka. At the same time, the arm was surrounded by streams of light, and then spread to the whole body. After it dissipated, the real armor was already draped on the body. The process of Ziozuji and Yang Yuhe activating the spiritual armor can only be described as cool, and the calmness of the two people throughout the process can only be described as pretending. To use Jun Chang's joke, since you are participating in the dragon and tiger battle, you are here to show off. No one in the world can stop my disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect from showing off. If there is, then go to hell. Who? The other 7 arms pressed down fiercely. Suddenly, the bone-chilling cold air spread from a distance, and layers of frost clung to the big hands. Freeze. Lu Kai and Qian crossed her jade hands and shouted coldly. Crack, crack, crack. The 7 arms that pressed down were instantly frozen, and the speed of falling was greatly slowed down. Sealed. The audience exclaimed. This girl has a terrifying understanding of ice. A strong ice cultivator said in a deep voice. Bang. A fist hit the arm that Yang Yuhe caught, smashing it directly, and then he fell lightly and said, leave it to me. Swish, swish. Ziozuji and Yang Yuhe dodged one after another. He stood under the frozen arm and shook his arm. His slightly lazy eyes instantly became sharp. Are you serious? Jun Chang smiled. The cultivation level of this closed disciple improved very quickly, but no one had ever seen how strong his combat power was. Swish. He gathered his spiritual energy in his right fist, and immediately used the mountain collapse and earth-splitting fist. Whoosh, whoosh. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with terrifying fists. Yi Xingchen frowned. He had also been practicing the mountain collapse and earth-splitting fist, but in terms of power and momentum, it was obviously far behind He Wudi. Although Yi Di was the reincarnation of the martial emperor, this disciple was from the upper realm after all. In the battle with the Black Dragon Evil Sect, if he had not been careless and had the devil's energy enter his body, the group of evil masters who used bloodthirsty magic would not be enough for him to abuse alone. If it is said that all the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect were cheating in this dragon and tiger battle, He Wudi was just flying in the sky, taking in all the cheats. Boom, boom, boom. Before the 7 arms were unsealed, dense fist prints came over. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. After a round of bombardment, Ling Huanzhan's arms were completely broken, and his spiritual energy turned into smoke, covering half of the arena. Swish. He woody jumped up and stretched out 2 fingers. Hoo-hoo. The red light quickly gathered and sprayed out a dazzling beam of light, which hit the crumbling Ling Huanzhan's eyebrows and pierced through it extremely domineeringly. Puff, puff. The disciples of Dai and Shengzang vomited blood one after another. As their minds were in chaos, the condensed Ling Huanzhan dissipated directly on the arena. It's broken. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. Xiao Zuji was already strong enough to throw Ling Huanzhan over, but that disciple actually wiped it out so easily. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "My last disciple should be as strong as a peak martial king now. I would not have taken him to participate in the dragon and tiger contest if I had known." Why? Because he was too strong. He didn't give other contestants any chance to survive. Don't waste time. Lu Qian, who had remained silent, said, "End the fight quickly." The eldest sister spoke, and Li Qingyang and others dared not disobey. Swish, swish. So, they didn't care about the fact that the disciples of Dai and Shengzang were injured because of their broken moves, and they gathered all kinds of moves to kill. The most active one was Yi Xingchen. After all, he was called trash by rubbish before the fight even started, so he must vent his anger on other contestants. Plop, plop. The already injured disciples of Dai and Shengzang could not withstand the bombardment of the disciples of Wanguzhang, and flew out of the fighting stage one after another. The audience was stunned. After about a moment, only one disciple of Dai and Shengzang was left on the stage, still struggling to support the 25 disciples of Wanguzhang standing in front of him. Some leaned sideways, some held their hands, or squatted down, exuding a strong aura, as if they had turned into monsters. Ah! The disciple of Dai and Shengzang shouted angrily. As a result, before he could make a move, he was kicked away by Su Xiaomo, and lay neatly together with his family. So far, the first round of the first battle is over. After a long pause, the referee's voice sounded. Dai and Shengzang is eliminated. The winner is Wanguzhang. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and obtaining 2 experience symbols, which have been transferred to the space ring. A prompt sounded in his ears. However, Jun Changxiao was stunned and said, "Where is the contribution value?" The system said, "This kind of side quest with a clear price tag will not give contribution value rewards." Fuck. Jun Changxiao collapsed. Are you kidding? P.S. There are more. Please vote. Chapter 710 Creating 2 Records. The first round of the first battle is over. All 25 disciples of the Great Yan Shengzang were knocked away, and none of the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect were eliminated. After the referee's announcement, the entire Xingyan continent fell into absolute silence. At the beginning, everyone believed that the Eternal Ancient Sect would help the opponent to advance smoothly without any effort when it met the Great Yan Shengzang. At the beginning, no one was optimistic about this 5th-rate sect. Even if the people of Qingyang County cheered for it, they only hoped that they could hold on under the offensive of the 1st-rate sect. As a result, the Great Yan Shengzang was completely blown up and became a stepping stone for the Eternal Ancient Sect to help it advance to the 2nd round. In fact, we shouldn't shout at the Eternal Ancient Sect to hold on. We should shout at the Great Yan Shengzang to hold on. Unfortunately, they didn't hold on. Even if they used the Great Yan Spiritual Array, they were still ruthlessly crushed by the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect. This is a story of sadness. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the light curtain, fixed on the group of Eternal Ancient Sect disciples who were standing irregularly on the duel stage, or sideways, or holding their hands, or clenching their fists, and deep fear was in their eyes. Monster. Come and see. A bunch of monsters. The one with the most expression on his face was Duan Zhixiao. All the disciples of Dai and Shengzi were defeated, and he subconsciously rubbed his eyes to make sure whether what he saw was true, real, effective. Even if the disciples of his own sect met this first-class sect, they would go all out, but just lost to the Eternal Ancient Sect. Unbelievable. Hey. Jun Changxiao, who was sitting next to him, leaned back in his chair, supported the back of his head with both hands, and smiled. I hope your sect can pass the first round, so that we can still meet. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. Before the war, he was eager to meet the eternal ancient sect. But now the first class sects have been beaten to shit, and if they meet in the second round, they will definitely be unlucky. The big brothers of various sects who originally regretted not being able to match this fifth-rate sect are now extremely fortunate that they did not draw it in the first round. So, all contempt and ridicule can only be crushed by absolute power. The victory of the eternal ancient sect over the Dayan Shengzang undoubtedly proved itself to the world with actions. Plop. In the certification hall of Yangzhou in the southwest, Yi Xiangxing was like a deflated ball, and he collapsed directly on the chair, prepared by Elder Zhao in advance. His breathing was rapid, and his fingers were shaking violently. No one knew how rich the expression on the face of the hall owner was when the great Yan Shengzan was knocked out one by one. When the game was over, when the result was settled, the little heart hanging in the throat returned to its original text, and the person also collapsed as if exhausted. This shows that people will consume a lot of physical strength under high tension. Even those who practice martial arts and have a high level can hardly avoid it. Hall owner Elder Zhao held the chair and said excitedly, "Win, win, the eternal ancient sect won. Win, win." Yi Xiangxing, leaning on the chair, whispered softly, and then it was difficult to control his emotions, and tears suddenly flowed. In the previous Dragon and Tiger competition, all the sects sent out were eliminated in the first round. The eternal ancient sect that participated in this competition finally broke the curse and advanced to the second round. How could he not cry with joy? What's more, the sect representing Southwest Yangzhou also created 2 new records. First, the fifth-rate sect advanced to the second round. Second, the first-rate sect was eliminated in the first round. In previous Dragon and Tiger contests, although fifth-rate sects occasionally participated, they were always eliminated in the first round. Over time, fifth-rate sects no longer dared to come to play. As for the first-rate sects that participated in each session, not to mention being eliminated in the first round, they had never been eliminated in the second round. Today, the eternal ancient sect defeated the great Yansheng sect, and the myth of the first-rate sects being undefeated in the first round was completely broken. No wonder the entire Xinjiang continent fell into silence when the referees announced the results, because the 2 records created by this sect were really unprecedented. We won. The eternal ancient sect won. After a brief silence, tens of millions of people in Qingyang County shouted excitedly, and many people were so excited that their eyes were blurred with tears. Our Southwest Yangzhou is the weakest state. There is only one place in each Dragon and Tiger contest, and going there is also a stepping stone for other sects to advance to the second round. We in Qingyang County are only of the 9th rank, and are not taken seriously by the warriors of the high-ranking counties. It doesn't matter. We have the eternal ancient sect. He represents Southwest Yangzhou and Qingyang County, and defeating a first-class sect that is like a god is enough. Tens of millions of warriors and common people looked at the scattered disciples of the eternal ancient sect on the light screen. Their spines were straighter than ever before, with ecstasy and pride on their faces. The eternal ancient sect is mighty. The eternal ancient sect is mighty. The angry shouts tore through the sky of Qingyang County and spread to a more distant direction. On the contrary, in Tegu Mountain, in the eternal ancient sect, although the disciples were happy, they did not act so crazy, because it was normal for the senior brother to defeat the disciples of the first-class sect. Very strong. How did they practice? If they meet, there will be a fierce battle. The participating disciples of various sects who had not yet appeared stared solemnly at the group of eternal ancient sect disciples who walked down the fighting stage one after another. The victory over the great Yansheng sect has already attracted enough attention from the geniuses of these sects. Everyone. Suddenly, a voice came from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw Jun Changxiao appearing in front of the formation again. Facing the camera, "This is my disciple. You will be as powerful as them if you join the Wangdu sect." Everyone's mouth twitched. What are you waiting for? It's better to act than to be moved. The last few words were shouted out with broken voices, mainly because they were too far away from the formation, so they had to shout loudly. Swish, swish. The 2 martial emperors of the organizer held Jun Changxiao, and then pressed him to his seat, and simply did not leave, standing in front of him with his hands folded on his chest. This treatment is very high. I say, two of you. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, there are so many people, don't keep staring at me. The corners of the mouths of the bigwigs of each sect twitched. Not staring at you, and flying up to advertise without paying attention. Who can stand this? The first battle of the first round is over. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lu Qian Qian, Li Qingyang and others returned to their original positions. Brother. Li Fei muttered, they are too weak. Li Qingyang said, the first class sects only sent disciples to participate in the dragon and tiger contest. If we really get serious and send out the most elite disciples, we may not win so easily. He is a steady person. He will not deny the strength of the first class sects just because he defeated the Dayan Shengzang. After all, this kind of power with a strong foundation has many people with extraordinary qualifications and physiques. To put it bluntly, in the eyes of the top sects, the dragon and tiger contest is nothing more than sending mediocre disciples to train. Those most elite disciples will definitely focus on cultivation. I hope the opponent in the next round will be stronger. Suzaomo said. Li Qingyang said, the sect master said that there are many talented talents in this dragon and tiger contest. We can take the opportunity to see them next time. Yeah. Everyone focused their attention on the sects that were about to appear. Unfortunately, the two fourth-rate sects that participated in the second round were not from Zhangzhou. The two sides chose to fight one by one, and the fight was really boring. So boring. Suzaomo and Li Fei were drowsy. It was not until the second-rate Aoshi Shengzan fought against a third-rate sect that they became interested, because after the two sides chose to fight one by one, the guy called Ao Washang defeated 25 people alone. TSK. Suzaomo said, a bit strong. It's a strong opponent. Li Qingyang said. Swish. After the referee announced the result, Ao Washang jumped off the fighting stage, and when he returned to his original position, he swept the disciples of the Wanguzang one by one, and said disdainfully, trash. Yi Xingqian's eyes gradually became cold, and he said, I must draw the Aoshi Shengzang in the next round. I will crush him to death. P.S. I will see if I can come again if I can. My dears, please give me your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 711. Finally, it's what you wish for. The competition continued. As expected, the high-level sects, especially the four first-class sects, easily defeated their opponents and advanced to the second round. Of course, there are also low-level sects that counterattack high-level sects. For example, the Iron Fist sect. This third-rate sect defeated the third-rate sect of Zhangzhou and successfully advanced. Although Zhao Dazhuang, who participated in the competition, only fought one match, his overwhelming cultivation made the audience believe that this boy is absolutely extraordinary. There are indeed many good talents in this dragon and tiger competition. Many strong men commented on it. However, when they accidentally looked at the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect, thinking of the scene of the first-class sect disciples just being abused, they secretly said, the disciples sent by the Eternal Ancient Sect are all monsters. Yu Zhao Ziji, Zhao Dazhuang, who had just walked down, stopped outside the waiting area of the Eternal Ancient Sect. Not bad. Zhao Ziji said. Zhao Dazhuang grinned and said, I hope we can meet in the subsequent competitions. Just now, he was very excited to knock down Ling Huanzun with his strength and courage, and he also realized that the opponent was definitely very strong in terms of physical body. What the master said was indeed right. This disciple of the Eternal Ancient Sect is a very good opponent. If we can have a fight, it will be worth the trip. I think so too. Zhao Zuji said. Meeting in the wild, walking with a spirit beast on his back, he wanted to learn from him. Boom. After the last two sects to appear were determined, the first round of the dragon and tiger battle was declared over. 200 sects fought 2x2 for 100 games, so it was dark after all the games. Everyone. City Lord Han said loudly, the first round of the dragon and tiger battle is over. Please pay attention to the second round tomorrow. It's so cool to watch. Especially the Eternal Ancient Sect. I didn't expect that the first to fight would be the biggest upset and defeat the first-class Dayan Sheng sect. The audience left the venue one after another, but they were still discussing the previous duel between the sects on the way. Jun Changxiao also stood up. However, after taking 2 steps, the 2 martial emperors behind him followed. They were afraid that he would fly up without paying attention and shamelessly advertise for the sect, so they had to follow him closely. But suddenly, the image formation became dim. After confirming that the formation was closed, the 2 martial emperors left with peace of mind. The 2 brothers stared at the Jun clan leader for most of the day and were very upset, so they found a restaurant to sit down and ordered a few dishes and 2 pots of wine to relax. Let's go, let's go. After seeing the formation light screen dim, the warriors of the cities in various states got up and left and secretly decided to come early tomorrow to occupy a more favorable position for watching the battle. But, however, before anyone could evacuate, the formation light screen that had been dimmed lit up again. Jun Changxiao's handsome face appeared again, and then he stroked his hair and smiled. Everyone, Hu Hansen, am back again. The warriors of the entire continent were all petrified. Puff. The 2 martial emperors of the organizer saw the image formation suddenly open, and the shameless guy appeared in the camera again. He sprayed out the wine on the spot and dropped the chopsticks in his hand. Wasn't the formation closed? How did it open again? Without thinking, the 2 hurriedly flew out of the window and then approached Jun Changxiao, who was promoting the sect with great passion. One of them pulled his arm back and shouted, "Close the formation." Several formation masters below were sweating and communicating about the image formation. It took them a long time to close it again. They dared to hijack the formation for advertising. Sect Master Jun, you are really crazy. However, it also sounded the alarm for the organizers. They hurriedly dispatched dozens of formation masters overnight to reinforce the image formation and set up firewalls to prevent it from being hacked again. Not only that, in order to prevent that shameless person from interfering with the game and forcibly advertising again, City Lord Han sent several more martial emperors. The next day, Jun Changxiao had just sat in the spectator seat. Swish, swish, swish. 10 burly brothers quickly surrounded him. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and he said, "Please make way. I want to go to the toilet." "I'll go with you." The 10 martial emperors shouted in unison. The task given by City Lord Han was very simple. He must keep an eye on this guy and never let him take the opportunity to fly to the image formation. Okay. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair and said, "I can hold it in for a while." But the image formation started again. On the light screen, the 100 sects that advanced to the second round entered the venue one after another, and there were strong shouts. When the disciples of the eternal ancient sect came out, many audiences shouted again. Yesterday's upset victory over the first-rate sect made them recognize this fifth-rate sect and willing to be a fan and cheer for it. All sects took their positions. City Lord Han didn't waste any words and went straight to the point, asking the disciple representatives to draw lots to choose a second round opponent. Don't draw the Wongu sect. Don't draw the Wongu sect. A sect disciple representative walked to the front desk and stood in front of the draw box and muttered silently. Yesterday, he was still thinking about drawing it, but today he didn't want to draw it. This psychological change is quite big. Swish. Reach in and take it out. The sect shown on the sign is not the Wongu sect, which immediately made the disciple breathe a sigh of relief. Senior sister. You go. Okay. Li Qingyang walked over again. After drawing lots once, he was able to face it calmly. But other sect disciples became nervous and worried, and silently said in their hearts that they must not draw their own sects. Swish. Li Qingyang raised his hand and put it away. Wongu sect's second round opponent is City Lord Han. May also know that this new sect is very topical, so he deliberately dragged out the sound for a long time before announcing Golden Glory Holy Sect. Fortunately, the sects that were not selected immediately breathed a sigh of relief. However, Jun Changxiao, who was sitting in the VIP viewing seat, was stunned. There are so many sects. How come they chose their own sect? The eliminated Dayan Shengzan was also thinking about this matter. How come they chose their own sect first among so many sects? Brother. Jun Changxiao smiled through the little gap left by several martial emperors and said, "Finally, it's what you wished for." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Of course, he couldn't be pessimistic, but straightened his back and sneered. Meeting my Jun Changxiao, your Wanguzang's dark horse road has come to an end. Really? Jun Changxiao touched his chin. Crack. Crack. The opponent selection process is still going on, but the crackling sound of bones has been heard in the area where Wanguzang is located. Suzuomo shook her head and turned her wrist with a sinister smile on her lips. Li Fei, Shinqi and others were also doing pre-war warm-ups, and they all heard the sect master's repeated instructions last night. If you meet the Jinhuang Holy Sect, beat them to death. Keyword. Beat them to death. City Lord Han fully considered the topic. After the draw ceremony, he announced loudly, the first battle of the second round, the Wangu Sect versus the Jinhuang Holy Sect. Swish. Li Qingyang stood up and waved his sleeves and said, fight. Swish. 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 Zio Zuji, Suzuomo and others clenched their fists and then stepped onto the martial arts field. Hoo-hoo. They stood on the stage, tilted their heads, and looked at the approaching Jinhuang Holy Sect disciples, releasing a powerful aura, as if their bodies turned black in an instant, and their eyes flashed with a sinister red light. Duan Zishao's heart suddenly stomped when he saw this. Their eyes are so scary. The audience was also terrified. The approaching Jinhuang Holy Sect disciples were also terrified, and at this moment, the most appropriate description was panicked Holy Sect. P.S. I won't be as shameless as Sect Master Jun, I'm just saying this weekly. Please vote. Chapter 712 Are there any normal people in your Wangu sect? When the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect stood on the fighting stage, they seemed to have turned into demons from hell, emitting extremely sinister eyes. The disciples of the Golden Glory Saint Sect were immediately frightened and panicked. This terrifying gaze was too scary. Trouble. Duan Zishao's face was extremely ugly. From the expressions of the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect, he guessed that, once the fight started, they would definitely be stronger than yesterday. This elder, who had the courage to speak harshly to Jun Changxiao just now, is now cowardly and only hopes that the disciples can be abused lightly after the start. Abuse lightly? He underestimated Jun Changxiao's tolerance. Swish. Swish. The disciples of the Golden Glory Saint Sect stood on the fighting stage with difficulty. Compared with the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect who seemed to be demonized, they were several steps shorter in momentum. The atmosphere is wrong. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect seem to hate the Golden Glory Saint Sect very much. Everyone also saw that something was wrong. At this moment, the referee stepped onto the stage and asked, representatives of both sides, are you going to fight one-on-one, or in a big fight? One-on-one duel. Li Qingyang said. Since the master has given the order, it must be fun to abuse them one by one. Qingyang, you have changed. The referee asked the representative of the Jinhuang Holy Sect, and then announced loudly, in the first battle of the second round of the Dragon and Tiger contest, both contestants choose to fight one-on-one. The first contestant, please step forward. I'll go first. Li Xingchen strode out, and stood in the center of the fighting stage, his eyes flashing with coldness. Junior Brother Sunday, a disciple of the Jinhuang Holy Sect said, you fight. Junior Brother Sun, who was named, twitched his mouth slightly, but he could only bite the bullet and walked up. The game begins. The referee announced loudly. However, as soon as the voice fell, Li Xingchen stepped on the vertical cloud step and appeared in front of the disciples of the Jinhuang Holy Sect, and his right hand whistled away with a strong wind. Bang! This palm hit the opponent's face directly, and the whole person fell to the ground with a bang, and his teeth were scattered all over the ground. Swish! Li Xingchen strode forward, dragged the guy's right leg, and suddenly yanked him to the other side. Boom. 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 The arena was shaken, and the audience's mouths twitched. They couldn't even bear to look at the disciple of the Jinhuang Holy Sect who was thrown around. Too cruel, too brutal. Ao Washang's arrogant performance yesterday made Li Di very angry. So, even if there was no order from the sect master today, he would still abuse his opponent severely. Duan Zishao closed his eyes. Although he had a premonition that his disciple might suffer, he didn't expect to be abused so miserably. Stop, stop, stop. The referee hurriedly stepped on the stage to stop him and said, "This contestant, the dragon and tiger battle is nothing more than a competition, not a life and death battle. Please control your emotions, and don't be so cruel." The referee was alarmed. It can be seen how terrible he is when he abuses people. Humph. Yi Xingchen stopped and threw the disciple of the Jun Unholy Sect out of the arena. The humanized imaging formation also gave the guy a close-up shot, so that many children were so scared that they quickly closed their eyes. Too miserable. How big is the hatred and resentment? Junior brother Yi. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched slightly and transmitted his voice. "You were a little heavy." The master said that he should be tortured to death. Yi Xingchen did not retreat, but looked at the angry disciples of the Jun Unholy Sect and said lightly, "Send someone to continue the battle. Torturing one person is not enough. He wants to torture more. I'll do it." A disciple of the Jun Unholy Sect took the initiative to come out, his eyes flashing with monstrous anger. Although he was very afraid of this guy, the people who were tortured by his fellow disciples were neither human nor ghost, and any man with a little blood could not bear it. "Start." The referee shouted. Boom. 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 Stop, stop, stop. It was just the beginning, and the referee couldn't stand it anymore, and went on stage to continue to stop Yi Xingchen. There was no way. If he didn't come up and persuade him quickly, it would be easy to get killed according to his torture method. This old man is destined to be the busiest referee today, because after defeating the second opponent, Yi still chose to continue fighting. Every time a fight started, he would abuse without mercy. Start. Stop, stop, stop. Start. Stop, stop, stop. After several more battles, the referee went up and down to persuade them, and was tired and sweating. I said, "Can you replace that sadist, so that I can safely preside over a sect battle with my old bones?" In a certain city, Yi Xingchen abused the disciples of the Jun Unholy Sect again and again, and the black-robed man leaning against the corner clenched his fists tightly. He was very familiar with these scenes, and had been a party to them, so he understood the pain of being abused. Some scars can be healed, but some scars will turn into scars, deeply imprinted on the skin and deeply imprinted in the heart. Crack. The black-robed man clenched his fists tightly, and gritted his teeth and said, "Yi Xingchen, I, De Lu, will not be a human being, unless I step on you." It turns out, that he is a lovely green scarf brother. No wonder he hates Yi Xingchen so much. After all, he has been abused more than once or twice. Of course. De Lu also realized that, although he has the power of devouring, and can quickly improve his cultivation, he seems to be a little worse than that guy in terms of strength. It doesn't matter. The road of martial arts has just set sail. When I can use my abilities freely, and break through to a higher level, I can definitely step on that guy, and get back the humiliation I have suffered. The spirit of Green Scarf brother who has been defeated repeatedly, and never discouraged, is worth learning from. The sad thing is, even if he has the ability to devour, how can he compete with Yi Xingchen, who has been reborn as a martial emperor, and is practicing in the eternal ancient sect? You just added a layer of buff. That guy added 2 layers of buff. This is simply impossible to win. It's just a gift last time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. De Lu took out a yellowed map, his eyes flashing green, and said, "As long as I find the treasure inside, I will definitely be able to reach a high level." This was what he undoubtedly got from the street stall. His intuition told him that there must be a great opportunity hidden in it. Boss. At a street stall in a certain city, a teenager picked up the same yellowed map as De Lu and said, "How do I buy this?" "Young man," the stall owner said in a deep tone, "you have a unique vision. This map is my heirloom. It is said that there are great secrets hidden in it. Only those who are destined to have it can see through it. Since you like it, it is destined to have it. 10 taels of silver. Take it away." "Okay, deal." The young man, who was not very experienced in the world, handed over 10 taels of silver and walked away happily with the map. The old man took the money and said to himself, "I cheated another person. Huh." De Lu retracted his eyes from the light curtain and walked along the route given by the yellowed map. He could already foresee that he would find the treasure and get the opportunity, step on the night stars, and punch the eternal ancient sect. Back to the dragon and tiger battle arena. When Yi Xingchen defeated the 10th disciple, Li Qingyang stopped him and let Suzaomo fight. The main reason was that he abused too fiercely, and he was afraid that he would lose his sense of propriety and cause death. Seeing that the sadist was replaced, the referee breathed a sigh of relief and shouted, "Begin." Boom. 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 Stop, stop, stop. Suzaomo had just started to abuse, and the referee jumped up to stop him, with a look of collapse on his face, saying, "Is there any normal person in your Wangu sect?" Plop. Plop. The 25th fight was over. The disciples of Jun Changxiao were abused by the disciples of Wangu sect, and fell to the ground like mud. "Brother." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Thank you." Duan Zishao collapsed on the chair helplessly. He took his disciples to participate in the dragon and tiger competition for the sake of ranking, but he was eliminated in the second round, and was abused so miserably. The 10 brothers surrounding Jun Zhangzu became nervous, because according to that guy's character, he might suddenly rush to the image formation to advertise. Keep an eye on him. Keep your eyes on him. PS. Happy Lantern Festival. Here comes the 6th update. Please save your recommendation votes for me tomorrow. Chapter 713. Crazy test on the line of life and death. Not only did the Jinhuang Holy Sect lose, but its disciples were also severely abused. It was not difficult to see from the way they were carried down that they had suffered both physical and mental damage. How pitiful. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect are too cruel. The audience discussed, and at the same time, they also understood the cruel side of the Eternal Ancient Sect. The disciples of the participating sects also became nervous, worried that if they continued to go on, would they also be abused extremely miserably in the next round. Don't worry. As long as they are not remembered, you are safe. The second-rate Aoshi Holy Sect is an exception, because Ao Washang's previous arrogance, even if Jun Changxiao didn't care, had long been remembered by another narrow-minded Yi Xingchen. Trash. Yi Di looked at the arrogant guy opposite, and said to himself, "Don't get eliminated." Ao Washang looked over, with disdain on his lips. Although this Eternal Ancient Sect disciple had performed very well just now, in his eyes he was just a vulgar trash. Jinhuang Shengzang is eliminated. The winner is Wangu Zhang. The referee's slightly weak voice sounded in the venue, and was transmitted to all the cities on the mainland through the light curtain. Why weak? It's because of the frequent blocking. Win again. Wangu Zhang won again. When the referee's voice rippled in Qingyang County, all the cities fell into carnival again. Yi Xiangxing sat on the chair again. His expression changed from dull to ecstatic, and finally covered his face with both hands, his body shaking violently, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Breaking the spell, and entering the second round, and now entering the third round. This newly promoted 5th-rate sect has been creating new records for the sects in Yangzhou, Southwest. Proud. Mu Changhong, who was in the city lord's mansion, was also full of smiles. The strength shown by Wangu Zhang has far exceeded his expectations. At this moment, it is indeed a great opportunity to advertise. But Jun Changxiao sat there honestly, because the 10 brothers around him were staring at him, and there was no way up to heaven or down to earth. Ouch. He covered his stomach and said, "My stomach hurts." "Here." A brother threw a wooden barrel and said lightly, "I'll poop in there." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly, then he pointed to the sky and exclaimed, "Look, a plane." The 10 brothers were indifferent, and stared at him intently. "Okay." Jun Changxiao gave up, and leaned back in his chair with his eyes closed to rest. At the same time, he released his spiritual thoughts, to continue to infiltrate the image formation, but he repeatedly hit a wall and returned. The organizer did a perfect job in preventing fire, theft and Changxiao. The second round of the competition continued, and various sects took the stage one after another, showing all kinds of martial arts, and the fight was exciting. After returning to their positions, the disciples of the Wangu sect would also selectively watch the battle. For example, Xiao Zuji, his mind was on Zhao Dazhuang, and he would pay close attention to him after he appeared. Swish. Swish. On the competition stage, the sword light flashed. Clang. After a while, the disciple of the Spirit Sword Sect sheathed his sword gracefully. Several contestants standing beside him had their shirts slashed with sword marks, but their skin was not hurt. What a fast sword. as expected of a sword genius who has comprehended the ultimate realm of speed. This spirit sword sect also has great potential. Hearing the discussion of the nearby sect leaders, Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "That guy is Jian Fian." From the information given by Tang Ren, there is a lot of writing about this person. He is mainly a sword cultivator and has also comprehended a sword realm. His strength is the most difficult to determine. Zhao Hong should be very concerned, right? Sure enough, when Jun Changxiao looked at his disciple, he saw that he was always staring at Jian Fian, his eyes flashing with a strong desire to fight. Some people may ask, can weapons be used in the dragon and tiger battle? Yes, as long as the two contestants agree, it will be changed from hand-to-hand combat to weapon combat. The game continues. The next to play is the Shisheng sect. Ao Washang once again knocked down all the opponents by himself, showing an extremely strong fighting power. He must have the capital to be so arrogant. After Ao Washang stepped down, he stopped at the waiting area of Wangu sect and made a provocative gesture of thumbs down to Yi Xingchen. Li Qingyang and others twitched their lips. Yi Xingchen was the most irritable person in the sect. This guy's repeated provocations were like crazy testing on the line of death. "Brother," Li Fei whispered, "I bet that if junior brother Yi meets that guy, he will be able to torture him so hard that he can't get out of bed for half a year." "Half a year is too little," Xian Qi said. "In my opinion, he will have to lie in bed for at least 2 or 3 years. No." Suzaomo said seriously, "With junior brother Yi's personality, that guy might die on the fighting stage." Ah. Li Fei and Xian Qi were stunned. If someone dies, it will be a big deal. Li Qingyang was also worried about this, so he hurriedly sent a voice message. "Junior brother Yi, if you really meet this person, you must control your emotions and never do anything extreme." Yi Xingchen looked cold and said, "Do I look like the kind of person who would mess around?" Whoosh. The murderous intent was everywhere. Li Qingyang and the others twitched their lips and said in their hearts, like. After half a day of competition, the second round ended. The 4 first-rate sects continued to be strong and successfully advanced to the third round. The fourth-rate sects from other states were completely wiped out, and the lowest sect left on the dragon and tiger fighting arena was the third-rate sect. Of course, the Wangu sect was an exception. The shock caused by this fifth-rate sect advancing to the third round was not as strong as yesterday. After all, they advanced to the third round by stepping on the first-rate sects and then defeated the second-rate sects, which seemed normal. There are still 50 sects left. I don't know what level of opponent the Wangu sect will draw tomorrow. Judging from the strong performance in the previous 2 games, unless they draw another first-rate sect, it will be difficult for second and third-rate sects to stop the Dark Horse's pace of progress. The Iron Fist sect and the Spirit Sword sect are very strong, especially Zhao Dazhuang and Jian Fian, who are also very strong. They may not be unqualified to fight the Wangu sect. Although there are many disciples participating in the dragon and tiger battle, if there is a very strong existence, it is entirely possible to turn the tide by one's own strength. For example, last year's finals, a second-rate sect fought against a first-rate sect. Although the overall strength was not as good as that of the first-rate sect, and it had even lost many games in the single challenge mode, when the core disciples played, they won 13 games in a row, directly locked the victory, and won the championship. This is typical heroism. Although it runs counter to the purpose of the dragon and tiger battle, there will always be one person who leads a sect forward in each session. In the eyes of many strong people, Zhao Dazhuang of the Iron Fist sect and Jian Fian of the Spirit Sword sect undoubtedly have the ability to turn the tide by themselves. Therefore, many first and second-rate sects dare not underestimate the 2 third-rate sects. If they meet in the next round, they will definitely go all out. Of course, they are more afraid of the Eternal Ancient sect. Because after the 2 battles, it seems that there are more than 1 disciples in this sect who can turn the tide by their own strength. Chapter 714 Xiangang Holy Sect. Hold on. The organizers of the Dragon and Tiger contest were very good at preventing Jun Changxiao from doing his job, and they didn't give him any chance to advertise. So after the competition ended the next day, the whole continent didn't see that guy's handsome face. The whole world was quiet, and life was better. Of course, there was still an advertising effect. especially the fact that the Eternal Ancient Sect defeated the first and second rate sects one after another and advanced to the third round, which undoubtedly made many boys and girls excited. After the competition is over, I must go to Qingyang County. I can't wait now. I heard that the assessment of this sect is very strict. I don't know if I can pass it. No matter which sect wins the Dragon and Tiger Contest Championship in the end, Tegu Mountain will attract a large number of young people to participate in the assessment in the near future. With the current number of people in the Eternal Ancient Sect, if they absorb another wave of disciples, they will undoubtedly be closer to the full capacity of 20,000. The next day, Jun Changxiao sat in the spectator seat again. Swish, swish, swish. 10 brothers stood in front of him, leaving only space for him to watch the fight. Being protected so closely by so many martial emperors, it is difficult to find such treatment in the entire Xingyan continent. Please invite the contestants to enter. City Lord Han's deep voice sounded again. Swish, swish. The disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect strode in, and the entire venue suddenly rang with thunderous cheers. In a world where martial arts are respected, the strongest are most admired. The first 2 rounds of the competition between Li Qingyang and others undoubtedly attracted countless fans. Yi Xingchen! Yi Xingchen! A group of girls shouted excitedly. The male audience's mouth twitched. That guy was so brutal yesterday, and you actually care about him so much. Did your brain get kicked by a donkey? The main reason is that Yi has a strong aura. Especially in the past 2 days, he has always stood alone with his hands folded, which is definitely a killer for girls. In the first round against a first-class sect, although Xiao Zuji performed very amazingly, he was selectively ignored by many girls because of his aura. Hearing someone calling his name, Yi Xingchen frowned slightly and said, "A bunch of mediocre fans. Ah. Yi Xingchen is looking at me. That cold look is so handsome. No, no." 50 sect disciples entered the venue one after another. Old rules. Continue the draw. Li Qingyang did not say anything, but walked to the draw box and took out a token from it. After 2 rounds of failure, this time he finally won. The opponent drawn by the Wangu sect in the 3rd round was a third-rate sect. It's over. It's over. Despair was on the faces of the disciples of the sect that were drawn. Especially when he looked at Yi Xingchen, thinking of the horrific scene of violence yesterday, a chill ran down his spine along the soles of his feet. This third-rate sect is so pitiful. A moment of silence for them. The audience is now very optimistic about the Wangu sect. As long as they don't encounter a first-rate sect or a sect with top talents, they will definitely advance. Sure enough, the draw ended, and the duel began. The Wangu sect easily defeated this third-rate sect, that even the author was too lazy to give a name. Too easy. Suzuomo shook her head and said, "It's not as fun as the competition in the sect." Li Qingyang said, "This is only the 3rd round. The opponents behind will only be stronger. Don't take it lightly." A few hours later, the 3rd round of competitions has ended, and a total of 25 sects have advanced to the 4th round. Today's competition also broke out. The Iron Fist sect defeated the second-rate sect of Zhangzhou with a third-rate appearance. The mode chosen by the 2 sects is a big fight. At the beginning, the second-rate sect absolutely suppressed the Iron Fist sect, but Zhao Dazhuan relied on his strong body to knock dozens of warriors out, directly laying the foundation for victory. This is a typical case of a sect being brought into the next round by the power of one person. That guy is too strong. His whole body is like steel and iron bones. He can carry so many people and bombard them wildly, and he can also launch a counter-attack. Xiao Zuji of the Eternal Ancient Sect has good defense. When the 2 meet, they will surely stage a wonderful physical confrontation. Everyone is looking forward to it. After seeing Zhao Dazhuan fighting, Xiao Zuji in the waiting area became more and more eager to fight. 25 sects advance, so how should they be allocated? If it is impossible to match all opponents, the organizer will choose to give a sect a bye. It's a coincidence. All the disciples of the winning sect were injured in the last round. After the sect leader's assessment, they could not continue to fight in the next round, and could only announce their withdrawal. The later the contestants fought, the more intense it was. It was not uncommon for both sides to be injured, or to win with difficulty. This was still considered good. At least they won the withdrawal. In the previous dragon and tiger competitions, there were occasionally two sects that were equally matched. They fought until they were all exhausted and collapsed on the ground, but it was still impossible to determine the winner. They could only be sentenced to go home hand in hand. The third day of the competition ended. Qingyang County and Southwest Yangzhou gradually calmed down from their initial excitement. In theory, a competition of this scale should become more difficult as time goes on, but the feeling given to them by the eternal ancient sect is that it becomes easier as time goes on. Especially the opponents in the third round, it was effortless. At the beginning, they fought against the first class sect and reached the peak. It would be boring to meet weaker opponents later. At this time, what can stimulate everyone's senses is that the opponent of the eternal ancient sect will meet the first class sect again in the next round. There are still 4 first class sects, and there is a high probability of drawing them tomorrow. TSK, a 5th-rate sect will meet 2 first class sects in the dragon and tiger competition. Just thinking about it is exciting. I hope that the disciple named Li Qingyang will not wash his hands and draw a first class sect tomorrow. Although the competition in these 2 days is exciting, the audience is more willing to see the eternal ancient sect compete with the first class sect, because that is the passion. If you keep thinking about it, there will be a response. On the 4th day of the competition, Li Qingyang walked to the draw table again. When he stretched out his hand, City Lord Han shouted loudly, "The opponent of the eternal ancient sect is the Holy Xiangang sect. Another first class sect. Ha ha ha, there will be a good show to watch." The whole continent was boiling with the announcement of City Lord Han. No way. Jun Changxiao, who was under strict supervision, covered his forehead and said, "How come we met a first class sect again?" In the arena of the dragon and tiger battle, no low-level sect has ever encountered 2 first-class sects in succession, because as long as they meet, they will definitely be eliminated. Second senior brother, Yi Xingchen couldn't help it, and said in a deep voice, "I will draw tomorrow." Ever since Ao Washan had repeatedly provoked him, he thought that he could become the opponent in the next round, but he was disappointed again and again after drawing lots. "Okay," Li Qingyang said, "you come tomorrow." Suzaomo exhaled and said, "The first 2 rounds were too easy. I finally met someone I can fight again in this round." Crack. Crack. Long Xiang, Song Zuantao and others were eager to fight. "Let's go." Li Qingyang strode forward. Suzaomo and others followed closely behind him, their backs turning dark again, as if they had entered a devilish state again. The audience hoped that the Eternal Sect would encounter a strong opponent to show its dark horse status, and they naturally hoped to encounter a stronger opponent rather than being easily killed in seconds like in the last round. Tap, tap, tap. Li Qingyang and others stood on the duel stage together. The image formation gave the camera one by one and gradually came to the distance, and the iron-boned momentum that emanated instantly filled the entire venue. Seeing the terrifying momentum burst out from the disciples of the Eternal Sect, the bigwigs of various sects twitched their mouths. It was obviously just a 5th-rate sect. Why was the special effects so awesome? Swish. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao, who was sitting on the viewing platform, stood up with a smile. This sudden action startled the 10 brothers who burst out their cultivation, as if they were facing a great enemy, and some even reached out to press him. Xiangang Holy Sect. Jun Changxiao raised his hand and clenched his fist, shouting loudly, "Hold on." Plop. The leaders of each sect fell down at the same time. "Brother, your disciples are here to fight. You are here to make fun of me." Xiangang Holy Sect, hold on. Xiangang Holy Sect, hold on. With Jun Changxiao's lead, the whole venue suddenly rang with loud shouts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 715 Tragic. In the battle between Wangu Sect and Xiangang Holy Sect, Jun Changxiao, the sect master, actually cheered for his opponent. This operation made the leaders of various sects collectively collapse. Such a sacred competition. Can you be serious? Jun Changxiao was very serious. Cheering for Xiangang Holy Sect is like shouting, Facing your own evil disciples, you must hold on and never be abused. The audience was driven and shouted loudly with this meaning. It's not that Xiangang Holy Sect is not good enough, but Wangu Sect is too good and hopes to comfort and encourage the first class sect. Hearing the shouts from the whole audience, the faces of the senior leaders of Xiangang Holy Sect turned green with anger. How much do they underestimate us to give encouraging cheers? Or, Wangu Sect is already so powerful that it is unmatched? Damn it. The disciples of Xiangang Holy Sect who stepped onto the duel stage were suddenly angry. A first-class sect is the most dazzling existence wherever it goes. Now facing a fifth-rate sect, it has aroused sympathetic shouts from everyone. This is really unacceptable. High-ranking sects have dignity, and no one can blaspheme at will. Fight. Must fight. Hoo-hoo. The disciples of Xiangang Holy Sect fully opened their cultivation. Rage and spiritual energy gathered together, and the momentum was much stronger than that of Dayan Holy Sect. Are you serious? Jun Changxiao sat down and folded his hands and said, this is interesting. Only by defeating the angry disciples of Xiangang Holy Sect can it be valuable and prove to the world the power of Wangu Sect. Babies. Jun Changxiao said, use your strength to conquer more fans. The fighting stage. The referee came up and said, will the representatives of both sides fight alone or in a big fight? The disciples of Xiangang Holy Sect said in a deep voice, big fight. Their sect is very good at forming formations, which can be seen from the word Xiangang, so they will definitely choose to fight in groups. Li Qingyang said, then let's have a big fight. It's a bit time consuming to fight one by one, so it's better to rush up with fellow disciples and see who will beat who. The first battle of the fourth round of the Dragon and Tiger contest, both contestants choose a big fight. The referee shouted, big fight? Isn't this exactly what the Xiangang Holy Sect wants? The Xiangang formation of this sect is stronger than the spiritual formation of the Dayan Holy Sect. The opponents we met in the previous rounds were too weak, so we haven't used it yet. Everyone's eyes suddenly became hot. If the Xiangang Holy Sect can use its unique formation, it will definitely be an extremely exciting battle, and the disciples of the Wangu Sect may not be able to handle it. Begin. The referee shouted and quickly left the field. Su Xiaomo, Li Fei and others put their hands together and warmed up before the battle with smiles on their lips. Judging from the aura of this Xiangang Holy Sect disciple, he is much stronger than the Dayan Holy Sect disciple, and he should be able to have a good fight. Swish, swish. At this moment, a Xiangang Holy Sect disciple stood in place and suddenly stretched out his palms. Pa, pa, pa. Several disciples behind him approached quickly, and their palms were placed on the backs of their fellow disciples to form a series of forces, and they poured all their strength into the front. Their palms suddenly burst out with heavy spiritual energy. The third style of Xiangang, the Great Destruction Palm. Buzz, buzz. The spiritual energy of the two palms suddenly burst out, and two looming palm prints, carrying a terrifying force, pressed down. This palm method jointly performed by many disciples of the Xiangang Holy Sect was very powerful, and it was obvious that the space seemed to be depressed. Xiangang formation. I didn't expect it to be performed at the beginning. Everyone got excited. Hoo-hoo, to seemingly invisible big palms, carrying the force of shaking the space, blasted over. However, the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect standing on the duel stage had a calm face. Tap tap. Yang Yuhe rushed over from the crowd, and in the process, the spiritual armor was activated, and the materialized armor was draped on his body. Mountain collapse and earth-splitting fist. Boom. 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 The explosive spiritual energy was rampant on the duel stage. The two palm prints coming from the front were beaten back by Yang Yuhe's fists. Thump, thump, thump. The several Xiangang Holy Sect disciples who gathered their moves kept retreating as the palm prints retreated, their faces becoming extremely ugly. The palm prints gathered by so many people were as powerful as those of a high-grade martial king. This disciple of the Wangu Sect blasted it back with just his fists. His power was too terrifying. Boom. Boom. Long Xiang and Song Zuontao rushed over from both sides, gathering their spiritual energy in their fists, and directly smashed the two palm prints with overwhelming force. Boom. 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 Several Xiangang Holy Sect disciples immediately retreated, and their blood began to churn. Change the formation. The leading disciple shouted. The 25 disciples of the Xiangang Holy Sect quickly separated, stepped on fixed points, and quickly made strange handprints. Bang, bang. There was a slight sound on the arena, and 25 more Xiangang Sect disciples appeared out of thin air. The 9th Xiangang move, clones. Although those extra ones are illusions, they also contain 50% of the attack power of the caster. 50 against 25. This is a bit tricky. Look, the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect are laughing. Everyone looked at them intently, and sure enough, they saw the guys smiling, and their eyes flashing with a burning fighting spirit. Go. Li Qingyang shouted. Swish, swish, swish. Suzaomo and Li Fei rushed over first with the cloud step. The two of them burst out with their spiritual energy, and gathered in their feet, and immediately launched the coldest bombardment. The disciples of the Xiangang Holy Sect were also fearless, and they all controlled their clones to fight. Bang, bang. In an instant, the two sect disciples launched the most exciting fight on the fighting stage. Great destruction palm. Red sky flame slash. Whoosh, all kinds of energy burst out at the same time, and the space in that area was shattered. Swish. Yi Xingchen rushed into the crowd, clasped a Xiangang Holy Sect disciple on the face with one hand, dragged him far away, and pressed him hard on the ground. Bang. The disciple disappeared with a thud, obviously just a clone. Great destruction palm. At this moment, several Xiangang Sect disciples gathered the third Xiangang style, and attacked from behind. Boom. Boom. The fully armed Zhao Zuji took the palm print. Mind your own business. Yi Xingchen snorted coldly, stepped on the Zhangyan step, and rushed to the front of the sneak attacker, punched him in the side of the face, and knocked him out directly. Boom. Boom. Suzaomo, Long Xiang and others also blossomed one after another, shattering the phantoms on the spot. Through the light curtain large screen, it can be clearly seen that, although the number of disciples of the Wangu sect is small, they are clearly in the upper hand in the battle with the Xiangang sect. Zhao Zuji and Yang Yuhe focus on defense. Yi Xingchen, Li Qingyang and others focus on output. Suzaomo and Li Fei use their speed to find opportunities. The whole battle scene is orderly and orderly. The audience is stunned. It is the first time they have seen a sect fight so artistically in a big fight. The Xiangang Holy Sect mainly practices various formations, and its coordination is very strong, but it is too inferior to the Wangu sect. To be exact, completely crushed. How can they fight when their strength and coordination are not inferior to theirs, or even stronger than theirs? Boom. Boom. 10 minutes later, the disciples of the Xiangang Holy Sect were knocked to the ground one by the exquisite coordination and powerful strength of the Wangu sect disciples. They really tried hard. They started to fight in their strongest state, but in the end they were no match for a group of cheaters. Xiangang Holy Sect, hold on. Xiangang Holy Sect, hold on. The audience stood up and shouted loudly, and the sound shook the sky with a tragic color. With each of their shouts, the camera seemed to slow down infinitely, and one by one the disciples of the Xiangang Holy Sect unlocked different postures and unlocked different expressions and fell down. At that moment, readers who were at the scene were all in tears. For a long time, the deep voice of City Lord Han rang over the venue. Xiangang Holy Sect is eliminated, and Wangu Sect advances. Chapter 716. One game to decide the victory. The Xiangang Holy Sect finally failed to hold out, and was defeated by the disciples of the Wangu Sect. However, even though they lost, they still had honor. Because after the fight, most of the disciples of the Wangu Sect were breathing a little faster, and it was obvious that they were very devoted to the fight, and enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Li Qingyang bowed and said with a friendly smile on his face. Thank you. Thank you. The Xiangang Holy Sect disciple who was lying on the ground said with difficulty. The Xiangang formations evolved in various ways, but they could not do anything to this group of Wangu Sect disciples, so the disciples of this sect were convinced of their defeat. Ha ha ha, we won again. Cheers came from Qingyang County. I didn't feel anything when I defeated the third-rate sect yesterday, but today I immediately felt the sensory stimulation of defeating the first-rate sect. Master, master, quick, quick, Pinch the Renzang. Hoo after the simplest rescue, Yi Xiangxing jumped up from the chair, his facial expressions kept changing, and finally squatted on the ground, covering his face and said, "We won against a first-class sect again. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence." Elder Zen and Elder Zal could understand the nearly crazy master. After all, at the beginning, they thought that the Eternal Ancient Sect would break through the curse and advance to the second round. Now it has not only far met the requirements, but also defeated 2 first-class sects in succession. The next time the top management of the certification hall will meet, the master will definitely hold his head high and be full of energy. Everyone. At this moment, the long-lost handsome face appeared on the light curtain of the formation. "This is my Eternal Ancient Sect disciple." They use their strength to prove that, even if a first-class sect is very strong, as long as they practice in the Eternal Ancient Sect, they can still create miracles. The sect boss was stunned. Wasn't this guy being stared at by 10 martial emperors? Why did he fly up again? Swish. Everyone lowered their heads. 10 burly brothers froze in place, with a very strong aura around them. The bigwigs of each sect widened their eyes. How strong must the aura be to suppress so many martial emperors and make them unable to move? People must have dreams, otherwise they are no different from salted fish. Jun Changxiao's whole face almost melted into the formation and said, "Wangu Sect is the place where you can realize your dreams. What are you waiting for? Come quickly, Master Jun." A voice came from behind. "That's enough. Wait for me to say." Jun Changxiao suddenly closed his mouth and then fell down in shame because the person who appeared behind him was none other than City Lord Han. Judging from the aura, he is definitely a martial saint. This kind of strong man does not rely on system props, and Master Jun certainly can't afford to provoke him. Swish. City Lord Han landed in front of Jun Changxiao with his hands behind his back and said, "You go down. I'll watch Master Jun." Yes. The 10 brothers disappeared. Just like that. To prevent Jun Changxiao from advertising again, one of the top masters of Xinjiang continent stood behind him personally. City Lord Han. Master Jun said, "Do you have any children? Why not let them come to my Wangu Sect to practice? I guarantee that they can be trained into the pride of heaven." City Lord Han has a good temper. If it were a hot-tempered master, he would definitely press this guy's face to the ground and rub it hard to see if he could rub his face thin. The 4th round of the competition continued, and the fight was also extremely fierce because the sects that could reach this round were very powerful. The third-rate sect with Zhao Dazhuang and Jian Fian sitting in the hall successfully occupied 2 places in the top 12. Aoshi Shengzang also defeated the opponent cleanly. Moreover, Ao Washang is really strong. He has been ravaging his opponent with the attitude of a king from beginning to end. However, this guy is also very good at courting death. Every time he passes by Yi Xingchen, he will show an arrogant and insolent look. To defeat 2 first-class sects, you are quite capable. Ao Washang stopped again, smiling slightly ferociously, "But you'd better pray that you don't meet Aoshi Shengzang in the next round. Otherwise I will let you rubbish know what absolute power is." Suzaomo and Li Fei frowned. If they were not still participating in the Dragon and Tiger contest, they would have been unable to resist taking action. Young sect master, a disciple of Aoshi Shengzang said, "Let's go." Ao Washang picked up the black hair in front of his forehead and said lightly, "A bunch of rubbish. See you tomorrow." "Damn it." Suzaomo said angrily, "I really want to jump out and beat him up." "Don't be impulsive." Li Qingyang said. "Fighting privately at the venue will definitely disqualify you from participating." However, what surprised him was that Yi Xingchen, who was standing next to him, always had a calm face, as if he didn't hear the other party's ridicule. Did junior brother Yi change his nature? Doesn't care what others say? No. Yi Xingchen didn't change his character. He was expressionless and speechless, just too lazy to pay attention to a guy who was labeled as a dead man by himself. The next day, with the cheers of the crowd, 12 sects entered. The sects that could enter this round were 3 first-rate, 2 third-rate, and 1 fifth-rate, and the remaining 6 sects were all second-rate. Don't draw the Wangu Sect. The lottery ceremony began, and the representatives of the disciples of each sect prayed one after another. Even the first-rate sects were no exception. After defeating the Dayan Holy Sect and the Xiangang Holy Sect in succession, no one thought that the Wangu Sect relied on luck, but had real strength. If they met with them, they would definitely be eliminated. I'll do it. When several sect disciples successively selected opponents, and did not select the Aoshi Holy Sect, Yi Xingchen was one step faster than others, and came to the lottery box first. Swish. Reach in and take it out. The opponent of the Wangu Sect is City Lord Han dragged out again. Iron Fist Sect. Crack. Yi Xingchen directly crushed the token, and his eyes could not hide the disappointment. The sects that were not selected breathed a sigh of relief. The Iron Fist Sect was also a dark horse, especially Zhao Dazhuang was very powerful. The beating of the two sects in this round was undoubtedly what they were most happy to see. The two contestants with the strongest defensive performance finally met. It will definitely be exciting. The audience did not care which of the two sects would win in the end, but only cared whether Zhao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang could stage a wonderful battle. Junior brother, Li Qingyang said, Zhao Dazhuang is left to you. Yes, Zhao Zuji said. At that moment, his blood seemed to burn, and the desire to fight surged into his heart. Zhao Dazhuang also had this feeling. So, the two of them looked at each other at the same time, and walked towards the fighting stage at the same time. Two heavy auras suddenly gathered in the air, as if they had already started to collide. Fighting stage. The referee asked, will the representatives of both sides fight one-on-one, or in a big fight? One-on-one. Zhao Dazhuang said, one round will decide the winner. The referee looked at Zhao Zuji and said, does your sect agree? In the dragon and tiger battle, either a group of people fight one-on-one or a group fight. There is no rule of one round to decide the winner. Of course, if someone proposes this way of playing, and the other party does not object, the organizer will definitely acquiesce. Zhao Zuji turned around, and looked at his fellow disciples. After getting the answer from their smiles, he said readily, agree. Chapter 717, Men's Battlefield. The name Zhao Dazhuang sounds very tacky, but he is very smart. After several battles in the Wangu Sect, everyone can stand on their own, and has the ability to reverse the situation. There is no hope of advancing if they fight with them. So the only chance for the sect to advance is to decide the winner in one round. No doubt. Although Zhao Dazhuang is eager to fight Zhao Zuji, he also hopes that the Iron Fist Sect can go further in the dragon and tiger battle. His routine is very clumsy. Any slightly normal sect will not agree. But Zhao Zuji agreed, willing to decide the winner in one round. Both contestants choose a one-on-one duel and the winner is decided in one round. The referee's voice sounded, one round to decide the winner? The audience was stunned when they heard it. There are so many awesome disciples in the Wangu Sect, but they only fought one round with the Iron Fist Sect. Is there a pit in their brains? What's more, Zhao Dazhuang is very strong. Even if a disciple of the Wangu Sect can't beat him, others can still go up. Now, if we choose to decide the outcome in one round, then if Zhao Zuji loses, then he will lose everything. You are sick. You are definitely sick. Warriors from all walks of life shook their heads. In the eyes of many people, the Eternal Sect can definitely beat the Iron Fist Sect. After all, the latter only has one Zhao Dazhuang, and the others are all salted fish, but choosing to decide the outcome in one round is undoubtedly pushing oneself to the edge of a cliff. What makes the audience even more speechless is, when the camera is given to the disciples of the Eternal Sect, they have smiles on their faces, as if they don't care that Zhao Zuji decides the outcome of the sect alone. This heart is too big. Warriors from all walks of life cannot understand the kind of emotions between the disciples of the Eternal Sect that go beyond friendship. Since Zhao Zuji has encountered an evenly matched opponent in the Dragon and Tiger contest, he must cooperate with him to have a good fight without regrets. Don't say that one round determines the outcome. If he is willing, one move can determine the outcome. Anyway, if he loses, he will not lose anything, and the sect master will just squat in the corner and cry. Master Jun. City Lord Han said, are you sure your sect wants to decide the outcome in one round? Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair, clasped his hands together, and said proudly, "The disciples will decide what happens on the field. I'm only responsible for watching and being proud of them." City Lord Han was silent for a moment and said, "I really admire you for being able to manage an obscure sect to such a level in such a short time." This was by no means a polite remark. "So," Jun Changxiao said, "have you thought it through, City Lord Han, and are planning to send your children to my sect to practice?" City Lord Han's mouth twitched. He kept talking about recruiting. How many disciples did he need? Very much. More than 80,000. Iron Fist Sect, Zhao Dazhuang. Eternal Ancient Sect, Zhao Ziji. Up to now, the two sides of the dragon and tiger battle have not yet announced their names to each other, which shows that Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang really regard each other as strong rivals. If we don't fight for 3 or 5 chapters, I will let them down. Suddenly, a thick breath burst out from the two people's bodies and rushed wildly in the air like a tide. The momentum has not yet started. Exciting. After the two people burst out their own momentum, the whole venue suddenly became solemn. The referee was impressed. He first retreated silently and then shouted with his veins bulging, "Begin." As soon as the voice fell, the violent spiritual energy burst out instantly, forming an overwhelming force that swept over in an instant. Not good. The referee's face changed in shock, and he staggered back in a hurry. Swish, swish. On the fighting stage, Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang burst out their cultivation and moved at the same time. The momentum of the two people seemed to be transformed into a dragon and a tiger, carrying a mighty force to meet them. At that moment, the blood of the audience across the continent began to boil. After fighting for several days, only this fight that just started made them truly understand what it means to fight between dragons and tigers. Even though Han Qingsu, who had already reached the level of martial saint, was staring at the arena intently at this moment. After all, the two young men were both talented people. What wonderful sparks could they create when they met now? Just watch it. And he stretched out his right hand to press Jun Changxiao, who was just about to take off, on his seat. Boom. Boom. On the arena, Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang had already started a fierce fight. The two of them were performing their skills back and forth on the arena, swinging their fists frequently, and a stream of spiritual energy was rippling. That body movement, that punch speed. It was really fast enough to dazzle people. Boom. Boom. The two exchanged several moves at a rapid speed, and then quickly separated. The tops on his bodies were completely shattered by the explosion of spiritual energy, revealing muscles that were enough to make women faint. Not bad. Zhao Dazhuang's eyes were burning. Although they had just started fighting, he could feel that the opponent's strength was very strong, and he must have experienced thousands of tempers like himself. Zhao Ziji's eyes were also filled with excitement. Since he embarked on the martial arts path of extreme physical tempering, this was the first time he encountered an opponent. Fight. 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 Swish. Swish. Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang rushed over again. The two physical demons did not use any martial arts, but just madly bombarded with the purest and most primitive power. As the two continued to bombard and fight, the arena was filled with extremely strong male hormones. Please remember, this is a real battlefield for men. This is real passion. Swish. Swish. The audience stood up one after another. They were deeply stimulated by the iron-blooded fight between the two. There were countless sissies in the crowd who retracted their orchid fingers, spread their legs apart, removed the powder on their faces, and threw away the eyebrow pencils in their hands during the fight between Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang. Boom. Boom. Zhao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang fought more and more fiercely. That strong masculine energy ravaged the entire venue, causing the most manly luster in the eyes of countless men. Bent. Straightened them all today. You and I are in the crowd, meeting and knowing each other. You and I are in the crowd, pretending to be decent with a smile. A high-pitched song suddenly rang out in the venue. Everyone was startled and turned their heads to look. Swish. In the VIP viewing seat, Jun Changxiao stood up, put one foot on the chair, and carried the magic modified speakers playing Shameless on his shoulders, shouting loudly, "Fight like a man." City Lord Han's mouth twitched slightly. However, combined with the fierce fighting off stage and the strange sound that suddenly sounded, it seemed quite exciting. Boom. Boom. On the fighting stage, Xiao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang exchanged dozens of moves. Although their breathing was a little rapid, their muscles were all bulging, filled with the most masculine aura of men. This Zhao Dazhuang is really amazing. He can fight on par with junior brother Xiao. Li Qingyang said. TSK. Yi Xingchen snorted coldly. In his opinion, Xiao Zuji just encountered an opponent with a very strong physical body and was eager to fight with him. He completely forgot that this was a competition field and it was a matter of winning or losing. Chapter 718 determines the outcome. The battle between Xiao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang, which was without any fancy moves, was really exciting. Especially the audience at the scene. They were deeply moved by the fist-to-flesh fight and suddenly felt a sense of pride that I'm proud of being a man. This is fighting. This is the most manly fight. Those little fans who were originally focused on Yi Xingchen saw Xiao Zuji fighting seriously with all his muscles and suddenly became crazy. There was no stance at all. Boom. At this moment, there was a bang on the fighting stage and a rolling wave of air came whistling. Trample. Trample. Xiao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang stabilized their bodies. The floor under their feet shattered and a stream of spiritual energy ripples visible to the naked eye spread out. The area where the two fought was completely distorted. Hey. Yi Xingchen impatiently transmitted his voice. Hurry up and finish it. Don't waste time. He knew that Xiao Zuji had fallen into a state where he only knew how to fight, so he had to remind him that it was a fight now, and the winner had to be decided. Yi. He was thoughtful. After being reminded, Xiao Zuji gradually calmed down from his frenetic fighting state. Although this opponent is not bad, he is ultimately responsible for the fate of the sect's promotion, so he must defeat him as soon as possible. Hoo-hoo. Xiao Zuji's fiery eyes became sharp, and he had obviously entered a state of fighting for victory, rather than simply fighting. Cap. His right foot suddenly stepped forward, and the original place instantly sank and spread to the surroundings. From the light curtain of the formation, it can be clearly seen that all the stone slabs within a few meters collapsed, as if they were hit hard by a heavy object. Not bad. City Lord Han praised. Taking a step forward, the stone slab was pressed down by a strong force. It would be impossible to do this without day-to-day physical tempering. At such a young age, he has developed his body to such a degree, and he will definitely be indestructible when he breaks through to a higher level in the future. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, in fact, my disciples are all good. I can see it. City Lord Han said. Although the other disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect did not appear as strong as Xiao Zuji, it can be seen from the previous few battles that they all have excellent physical disciples. If I'm not mistaken, City Lord Han said with a smile, Master Jun should have some unique tricks for cultivating the body, right? Jun Chang said with a smile, my sect's heritage is from ancient times, so naturally there are also methods of body shaping from ancient times. Will you die if you don't brag? The system said. Damn. I don't want to, but if I don't take this as a lie, how can I explain that my disciples are very strong? Jun Chang said with a smile. The system said, that's right. I've heard that the Wongu sect's heritage is from ancient times, but Han is a little ignorant and has not found any records about your sect in history books. City Lord Han said with a smile. Is he trying to find out his own details? Or does he not think that the sect is from ancient times? City Lord Han. Jun Changxiao said in a low voice, to be honest, my Wongu sect was once a dark sect. Dark sect? City Lord Han said, no wonder. Jun Changxiao could still catch a trace of doubt in his eyes, so he changed the subject and said, City Lord Han, are you interested in letting your children join my Wongu sect? This. City Lord Han hurriedly looked at the fighting stage and said, excellent, good fight. Is this guy a single dog over the age limit? Jun Changxiao muttered in his heart, no children or daughters? Guessed it right. City Lord Han doesn't even have a wife, let alone children, and has been single for nearly 1,000 years. No wonder Sect Lord Jun would quickly change the subject whenever he mentioned letting his children join the sect, because at this moment he is. Young people don't know the taste of sorrow, and old people know the difficulty of walking. Kai Zio Lai Yanzan. Suddenly, Zyrozuji's most masculine roar came from the fighting stage, and a huge flame slash in the air instantly condensed. Finally used the skill. Finally got serious. Crack, crack, crack. Zyrozuji, who practiced the 5-element Giant Shinju, has already comprehended the fire system. When he displayed this mid-level divine martial art in the strongest state, the scorching power it exuded was like a big pan tearing the space apart. Very strong. City Lord Han said solemnly. When he said strong, he meant strong moves. Step. Zhao Dazhuang took a step forward, the stone slabs under his feet shattered, his eyes flashed with fanaticism, and he spread his hands. But, the skin of his whole body quickly turned golden, like the bronze man of Shaolin Temple. Indestructible body of Vajra. Everyone exclaimed. This. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly and said, isn't it the same as when I crushed the talisman of endurance back then? Hoo. On the arena, the condensed red sky flames tore through the space and fiercely slammed down. Zhao Dazhuang, who was completely golden, stared with big eyes and shouted angrily, Vajra fist. Whoosh, whoosh. Zhao Dazhuang was surrounded by golden light, and a Buddhist Vajra was gathered. In the void, the golden giant fist tore through the space and fiercely pressed down towards the flame slash. Boom. The deafening roar spread in the venue. Crack. The space of the arena was torn apart by the force and cracked rapidly. The damage caused by the collision between the golden giant fist and the red sky flame slash made all the spectators hold their breath. This level of confrontation is definitely not what a low-level martial king should have. The two extremely powerful moves were unable to do anything to each other, and the last brilliance burst out in the air and disappeared. Thump, thump, thump. Zhao Dazhuang retreated backwards, and the gathered Buddhist Vajra suddenly collapsed. Although Zyrozuji also retreated, he only took a few steps back, and rushed over like an arrow from a string. Hoo. The hot flames instantly rose up, and the slash seals gathered again in the air. Again. City Lord Han was surprised. This kind of fire-based martial arts is extremely powerful, and it must consume a lot of spiritual energy. Red sky flame slash. Zyrozuji shouted, and the flames gathered in the sky slammed down again fiercely. The entire venue could feel the extremely violent heat. Zhao Dazhuang's eyes were solemn, and then he put his hands together. The golden light instantly formed a layer of defensive barrier in front of him. Boom. The red sky flame slash slammed on it fiercely. Although it did not break it, it also showed slight cracks. Trample. Zyrozuji had rushed to the front, and his hands suddenly stretched back, shouting angrily, mountain collapse and earth-splitting fist. Boom. 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 Dense fist prints burst out, like the rubber machine gun performed by the man who was determined to become the Pirate King. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh. The explosive force was crazy and wanton. The stone slabs collapsed into powder and instantly filled the entire arena. The warriors from various states and counties could not see the fierce battle inside from the light curtain. The audience was dumbfounded. Although many people could capture the scene of the battle inside with their spiritual thoughts, Zyrozuji's punching speed was too fast, and it was impossible to determine how many times he had hit. Gradually, the dust in the sky was carried away by the strong wind. Everything was seen clearly, and two deep trenches that extended infinitely appeared on the venue. Everyone widened their eyes, because in the field of vision, Zhao Dazhuang's golden barrier existed in front of him. Although it was densely cracked, it never broke. But, he had retreated from the arena to the outside. Whoosh. Zyrozuji, who was standing on the edge of the arena, half crouched, his hands hung down, and breathed rapidly. At this time, if he carried a straw hat, he would definitely explode after Ren blocks. Crack. Suddenly, the golden barrier in front of Zhao Dazhuang collapsed. He also bent down and breathed deeply, his eyes showing excitement and bitterness. Iron Fist Sect is eliminated. The winner is the Eternal Ancient Sect. After a long time, the referee's loud and resounding voice resounded in the venue. Plop. Zyrozuji sat on the ground and smiled at Zhao Dazhuang. There will be a chance to have another good fight. Chapter 719. Rubbish. I have tolerated you for a long time. The golden barrier condensed by Zhao Dazhuang is the strongest defensive form of the indestructible body. It can withstand Zyrozuji's bombardment and remain unscathed. It is indeed very strong. However, No matter how strong the defense is, it can't withstand the crazy bombardment. So Zhao Dazhuang can only take his strongest defensive form and be blasted out of the field by Zhao Zuji. The battle of life and death is irrelevant. But the battle restricted to the fighting stage. Once leaving the prescribed range, it means losing the game. The two sides had an agreement to decide the winner before the battle, so the referee directly announced that the Iron Fist sect was eliminated and the Eternal Ancient sect was promoted. Hey, Zhao Dazhuang sighed. Although he was quite unwilling, since he lost, and he had to accept the reality. Okay. He tried to straighten his body and said, fight again when there is time. The two fought very happily, but because they both had to consider the sect, it was inevitable that there would be many regrets. They would definitely have a good exchange of ideas in the future. It's a deal. It's a deal. Zhao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang smiled at each other. This kind of agreement between men is awe-inspiring. TSK. City Lord Han exclaimed, Master Jun, your disciple's body is not only strong, but also very powerful. As an expert, he can see that, although Zhao Dazhuang is good, he only has defense. In so many previous battles, he relied on charging, and the opponent was helpless. Zhao Zuji is different. Not only is his defense strong, but he also has offensive power. Even if both sides are in full state and fight again, the result will definitely be the same. No matter how strong the defense is, as long as there is no offensive power, it is just a moving sandbag. Jun Changxiao smiled brightly and said, so, I'm proud of my disciple. Vaguely, he remembered the scene when he first met Zhao Zuji and recalled that he kept shedding tears in the shaping room and the training tower day and night. If this were put in an anime, Zhao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang would have to fight for 2 or 3 episodes, just to recall their past efforts and the back of him constantly tempering his body under the setting sun. Qingyang County. When the referee announced that the Eternal Sect had won, the place turned into a boiling ocean again. Many men tore off their shirts in excitement and even hugged their companions. We won again. We won again. Ziguan stood in the city lord's mansion, and his excitement was beyond description. In the certification hall of Xianyu Royal City, before the referee announced the result, Elder Zhao had the foresight to quickly put a pill into Yi Xiangxing's mouth. That was a pill to prevent the blood from attacking the heart and causing sudden death. If it were placed on Earth, it would be called Ha. Yi Xiangxing, who had taken the medicine, lay on the chair, holding the handle, and said excitedly, tomorrow, prepare a bed for me tomorrow. I want to lie down and watch. Swish. Elder Zen hurriedly stuffed another pill, so as to perform a double stimulation, and protect the heart of the whole master. The fight between the Eternal Sect and the Iron Fist Sect ended. However, the manly battle between Zhao Zuji and Zhao Dazhuang still emerged in their minds. The more they thought about it, the more excited they became, and the more they thought about it, the more addicted they became. 3,000 sword shadows. At this moment, a cold shout came from the arena. Swish, swish. Just look at the dense sword energy bursting out instantly, the number of which made everyone's eyes widen. Clang. Giant Fia unsheathed his sword. Plop. The sect disciple who fought with him collapsed directly on the ground. The ground behind him showed dense sword marks, but there was a person character in the middle. This means that, although there were many sword energies, they did not cause any harm to him, but just passed by. This extremely strong control made the warriors present widen their eyes. Continue. Giant Fian raised his head, and his narrow eyes shone with a sharp luster like a sword, which made the disciples of the opposite sect all take 2 steps back in shock. What are you afraid of? We are a second-rate sect in Zhangzhou. I'll do it. Clang, plop. The disciple fell to the ground again. Although there were no scars on his body, the feeling of countless sword energies passing by was like experiencing death again and again. Brother Zhao. Li Qingyang said, this guy is very strong. Yeah. Zhao Hang said, I hope to meet him in the next round. Although this guy always appeared on the stage in the previous rounds, he didn't make many moves, so everyone evaluated him as the strongest lazy king of the Eternal Ancient Sect. How about you draw in the next round? Li Qingyang said. Before Zhao Han could say anything, Yi Xingchen said coldly, I'll do it. The Aoshi Sheng sect has successfully advanced to the next round, so he must draw tomorrow and put an end to that dead man with his own hands. Dusk came and the competition ended. The top 6 were the Eternal Ancient Sect, the Spirit Sword Sect, the Aoshi Sheng Sect, and 3 first-class sects that were always there but never had a name. Tomorrow's competition for the top 3 will definitely be more exciting. The 3 sects of the Eternal Ancient Sect may be matched with first-class sects. It's hard to say. In the next round, the first-class sects will have no protection rights, so they may be matched. TSK, it should be exciting to see first-class and first-class fights. The next day, Yi Xingchen stood in front of the lottery box again. When he took out the sign again, he almost dropped it and stepped on it twice. Let me abuse him. Is it so difficult? The opponent of the Eternal Ancient Sect is City Lord Han, stood behind Jun Changxiao, put one hand on his shoulder, and said, "Spiritual Sword Sect. Senior brother Yi." Zhao Han cast a grateful look and said, "Thank you, Yi Xingchen." The draw was over. The Eternal Ancient Sect played against the Spiritual Sword Sect, the Aoshi Sheng Sect played against the First Class Sect, and the other 2 First Class Sects met. Begin. The referee shouted loudly. Aha. Suzaomo yawned, and then squatted on the edge of the duel stage with Li Fei and others. The disciples of the Spiritual Sword Sect did the same. Why? Because the Eternal Ancient Sect and the Spiritual Sword Sect chose a one-on-one duel. The first to fight were Jian Fian and Zhao Han. When the 2 burst out their swords, it was destined to be a boring duel. How boring. The 2 stood motionless on the stage for more than 10 minutes, so that the audience yawned and shed tears. Laymen watch the excitement. Experts watch the doorway. Many swordsmen can infer at this moment that Jian Fian and Wang Dozong's Water King should have been fighting with swords. But it was invisible and could not provide the author with a chance to make a move. Clang, clang. Half an hour later, Zhao Han and Jian Fian finally moved, and 2 unparalleled sword auras cut through the void and burst out. The 2 swords were very stunning, as if they came from the sky. But it flashed away. Clang, clang. At the same time, the 2 sheathed their swords. Swish. Jian Fian turned around and jumped off the fighting stage, saying, "Your sword is faster." Suzai almost stared and said, "Is it over?" Careful people can find that when the disciple of the Spirit Sword Sect walked off the stage, a very fine sword mark appeared on the side of his neck. Because the size was just right, no blood oozed out. Next one. Ding, ding, ding. The duel continued. The remaining disciples of the Spirit Sword Sect had a good understanding of the sword, but were defeated one by Li Qingyang and others who were equipped with sophisticated swords. The Spirit Sword Sect was eliminated, and the Eternal Ancient Sect advanced. The referee announced loudly. After hearing this, Yi Xiangxing took a few pills with peace of mind, and then lay on the bed prepared in advance, saying, "If it is a dream, let me keep dreaming." The game continued. The Aoshi Sheng Sect, led by Ao Washan, successfully made it to the top 3. But in another match, the 2 first-class sects were evenly matched in strength, and until they all fell to the ground, they announced that they would go home hand in hand. Final. City Lord Han held Jun Changxiao and said loudly, "The Eternal Sect versus the Aoshi Sheng Sect." Swish. Yi Xingchen jumped onto the fighting stage, looked at Ao Washan, and said, "Trash, I've tolerated you for a long time. Junior brother." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched and said, "The decisive battle is tomorrow. P.S. Thank you for the 1 million book coins reward from Gideon. I really don't have time today. I'll see if I can get up to speed tomorrow. Thank you also for the rewards from readers during the Dragon and Tiger competition. Please vote for recommendation and monthly tickets." Chapter 720. Using life to explore the depths of hell. The next day, several arenas at the venue converged to form a larger arena. This was a professional arena for the finals. Not only had it been remodeled, but dozens of formation masters had also reinforced it with formations. No matter how high, wide or thick it was stronger than before. Even if you rub Jun Changxiao's face hard on it and rub off a few layers of skin, it might not hurt a single stone slab. How magnificent. The audiences who entered the venue one after another, looking at the tall and majestic arena, also realized that today's final battle would definitely be very exciting. Please invite the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect and the Aoshisheng Sect to enter. City Lord Han's heavy voice resounded throughout the venue and was transmitted to the entire continent through the light curtain. The image formation gave the camera, and it could be seen that this strong man was standing on the VIP viewing platform with one hand on Jun Changxiao's shoulder. Since City Lord Han was personally responsible for supervising, that guy has never brushed his face on the formation again. TSK. Someone said, the martial saint is watching me closely, so the treatment is very high. The advertising is too crazy. This is the first time I have seen such a shameless sect master. After a few days of fighting, many people remembered the awesome disciple of the fifth-rate sect, and also remembered the shameless sect master. Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao spread his arms and pulled out a banner out of thin air. It can be clearly seen from the camera that there is a line of words written on it, which reads, "Join my sect and let your dreams fly together." After returning yesterday, he thought about it for a long time and finally thought of this trick. The camera happened to give a close-up shot of City Lord Han, so Sect Lord Jun pulled out the promotional banner, and a line of big words instantly stole the limelight. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. This is really crazy, and the fight is crazy. City Lord Han's expression also became wonderful, and he hurriedly sent a message to the formation master to turn the camera away. Worth it. At least it appeared for several seconds. If this were to be shown on some large-scale evening parties or variety shows on Earth, the advertising fee would be very expensive in just a few seconds. City Lord Han collapsed and said, "It's hard to guard against it." He stopped the guy from flying up to swipe his face, but he didn't stop him from continuing to advertise by pulling banners. Forget it. It's the last show today, just bear with it. City Lord Han forcibly retracted the urge to press Jun Changxiao to the floor and rub him. Swish. At this moment, the 25 disciples representing the Eternal Ancient Sect came up one by one. However, City Lord Han's expression became exciting again. On the front of the bright clothes worn by this group of disciples, it was written, "Eternal Ancient Sect, your only choice. You have a plan. I have a ladder to climb over the wall. If you don't give me a shot, then put advertisements on all the disciples' school uniforms. And if you don't believe it, don't give them a shot when they fight. I can't stand it." Many viewers saw the slogans on the clothes of the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect, and they were almost crazy. The corners of City Lord Han's mouth twitched violently. How to break this trick? Should they go back to the waiting room to change again? But the disciples of the Aoshisheng Sect had already entered the venue, so it was too late. City Lord Han could only continue to contact the array master and tell them to wait for the disciples of both sides to come on stage, and then show the back of the disciples of the Eternal Sect and try to use a long lens when fighting. Swish. Not long after, the disciples of the Aoshisheng Sect, led by Ao Washang, stood on the high platform. The lens of the image array also turned from the front to the back. Fuck. City Lord Han couldn't help but swear. The 25 disciples of the Eternal Sect turned their backs to the camera, and each of them had a word written on their clothes, which combined to read, "My Eternal Sect inherits the ancient times, based on the principle of benefiting all living beings, and sincerely recruits heroes from all over the world." Counting 2 commas and an exclamation mark, there are exactly 25 words. And the font is very large, occupying the entire back, and directly occupying the light screen. When the camera gives a close-up of the back, there are both front and back. Just ask how you can break it. At that moment, City Lord Han almost couldn't help but turn off the image array. However, all the cities in the states and counties have paid and have the right to obtain the screen. If I turn it off in the finals, it will be a blast. City Lord Han. Jun Changxiao whispered, "Next time if we hold the Dragon Tiger contest, we can open the bidding. There will definitely be people willing to spend a lot of money to buy the advertising space in my way. At that time, the organizer will definitely make a lot of money." Although City Lord Han was very upset, he thought about it and felt that it made sense. So, he continued to apply for the Dragon Tiger contest in the lower world and adopted Jun Changxiao's advice. From then on, the Dragon Tiger contest embarked on a road of no return, inserting advertisements during a fight, and inserting advertisements during the day, until it developed to the point of being crazy. It was ridiculed by later generations as inserting Dragon Tiger contests in advertisements. In a world where the concept of widespread publicity is not very strong, Jun Changxiao is madly causing harm with his earthling thinking. The most typical example is clothing. With the disciples of the eternal ancient sect shining in the Dragon Tiger contest, it is bound to set off a new round of reform storms. By then, everyone will wear tang suits and chiangsams, and it will be normal to say, "Old Iron, there is nothing wrong with you." The fighting stage. Two sect disciples faced each other, and the atmosphere instantly became solemn. This atmosphere came from only one person. That's right. It's him. It's him. It's him. RFERNIU. Yi Xingchen stared at Ao Washang all the time. His emotionless eyes seemed to be looking at a dead person who had been cold for many days. "Junior brother." Li Qingyang transmitted his voice. "This is the last duel. You must control your emotions. Don't make anyone die. Otherwise the master will be in trouble." The eldest sister was cold and silent, and only he could mediate at this time. After all, he had the hidden ID of housekeeper on his head. Yi Xingchen said, "I only want half of his life." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched slightly. Heh. At this moment, Ao Washang said lightly, "You can actually make it to the finals. I take back what I said before. You are better than other trash." "Of course." He grinned and said, "Don't be too happy, because no matter how good you are still trash." Catcher. Suzaomo, Li Fei and others clenched their fists, their eyes flashing with anger. Li Qingyang, who always had a good temper, heard what Ao Washang said, and said in a deep voice, "Junior brother, then give me half of your life." Master Ao is really arrogant. The unique mental method of the Ao Shisane sect is the Ao Shinju. The higher the level of comprehension, the more arrogant the character. How did this kind of sect develop? I heard that there is another mental method that can complement each other and offset arrogance, but this Master Ao didn't practice it, so he has always been arrogant. No wonder, no wonder. Everyone whispered and understood why Ao Washang was so arrogant. Boy. Jun Changxiao leaned back in the chair, his arms resting on his legs, his chin resting on the back of his palms, and said, "You are using your life to explore the depths of hell again and again." He had seen arrogant and dissolute disciples before, but this was the first time he had seen such an arrogant guy. As a little King Kong in the world of seeking death, he was a little bit inferior. Will the two sides fight one-on-one, or in a big fight? The referee came up, but he remained absolutely alert, because the fighting stage was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder. One-on-one. Ao Washang and Yi Xingchen said in unison. The referee hurriedly announced, in the final of the Dragon and Tiger competition, the representatives of both sides choose to fight one-on-one. Let's start. The audience held their breath and concentrated. The referee looked at the disciples on both sides and said, "Who will fight first?" Ao Washang took a step forward and said lightly, "To deal with this kind of excellent trash, it is natural for this young master to fight alone, and send them all back to the garbage dump." Yi Xingchen walked up. The more he was about to torture a dead person, the calmer he became. "Junior brother Yi." Suzaomo and others sent voice messages one after another. "This guy's in your hands. You must torture him to death." Chapter 721, Hitting Yourself. In his previous life, Yi had a bad temper and offended many people. 4 of the 8 martial emperors broke off their friendship, 3 had grudges against him, and one of them cursed him when he was mentioned after drinking. What kind of act does one have to end up in such a miserable situation? After rebirth, Yi Xingchen restrained his temper a lot and cultivated in the sect with peace of mind, just to return to the peak and seek revenge on that woman. However, when he came to participate in the Dragon and Tiger contest, he unexpectedly met such an arrogant and domineering guy. Brother Yi's temper could not be suppressed immediately, and he would torture him half to death no matter what, and torture him to the point where he would rather die than live. Heh. Ao Washang said lightly, "Only trash would use their eyes to pretend that they are strong." Yi Xingchen looked at the referee and shouted, "Shout start." There was a breath of the devil from hell in his eyes and voice, which frightened the referee to take 2 steps back and hurriedly said, "Start who?" As soon as the voice fell, a violent wave of air burst out, instantly sweeping him back one after another, and finally staggered and fell off the fighting stage. The audience was stunned. The referee's cultivation must be the peak martial king. He was actually shocked out of the arena by the momentum of the contestant. This is too scary. Boom. The sound of explosion came suddenly. Everyone hurriedly moved their eyes over and saw that Yu Xingchen had already punched. The figure with his back to the camera was like a wild lion that had been locked up for a long time and was released, eager to eat meat. Senior brother Yi is so scary. In the Wangu sect, many disciples saw the terrifying back, and their faces were all dull. Usually, this senior brother gave them the impression of being a little aloof and a little unsociable, but they didn't expect that he had such a violent side. No, it was a murderous side. Brother Niu, who looked at him stupidly. Is this still the man who climbed a tree to take bird eggs and fell down and would grin and say it was okay? Is this still the man who stood in the wild and shouted that he would marry her when he grew up? The strong sense of strangeness gave her an idea. He is no longer brother Niu. He is Yi Xingchen. My brother Niu will never come back. I have to say, women's intuition is really strong. Everything has changed. Hua's eyes gradually blurred, tears slid down her cheeks, and she choked and said, I can never come back. Sister Li. Liu Wan, she said, you go and persuade her. Li Luoqiu shook her head and said, if you want to love, then love. If you don't love, then don't love. None of us can help her. Fighting stage. After Yi Xingchen, who was full of rage, threw a punch, Ao Washang took 2 steps back and grinned. Your strength is not bad. If you classify garbage into 3, 6, 9, you are at least second or third class garbage. Crazy exploration. The depth of hell. Really? Yi Xingchen took a step forward, and his fist carrying psychic energy and anger directly cut through the void and slammed over fiercely. But the space was shaken when this punch was thrown. Boom. Ao Washang condensed a series of air walls in front of him, took the powerful punch, and his body involuntarily took 2 steps back. What moves did junior brother Yi perform? Suzaomo said in astonishment. Li Qingyang said with a confused look on his face, I don't know. The strongest boxing method of the eternal ancient sect is the landslide fist, but the boxing method performed by Yi Xingchen is obviously not it. TSK. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and thought to himself, this guy is quite good. He was more convinced by Yi Xingchen's use of non-sect martial arts. He was a strong man reborn. After all, the intensity of the explosion just now was definitely at the level of a holy product. This level of martial arts. You can't buy it in the market, even if you have money. Tap. Ao Washang stabilized his body and smiled. Just based on the punch you just made, it is enough to be worthy of first class garbage. Swish. At this moment, Yi Xingchen appeared in front of him and said, garbage. Let Ao Washang say garbage thousands of times. Even if it is divided into 3, 6, 9 grades, it will only give people a sense of arrogance and domineering. But GD is different. Just a simple word of garbage is like a label directly printed on the other party's forehead and on the other party's skin. It can't be washed off or wiped off until it penetrates into the soul and becomes an eternal nightmare. Bang! A heavy punch hit again. The defensive barrier formed in front of Ao Washang was broken and he staggered back several steps. After steadying himself, he said coldly, do you really want me to be serious? Yi rushed over and punched the noisy guy in the face, causing him to step back with his head tilted. You can be serious. As for me, I just need to continue to abuse you. Damn it. Ao Washang steadied himself, his eyes flashing with anger, and then he clenched his hands, and violent arcs of electricity filled his body, and even lightning snakes were splashing in his hair. Thunder martial artist. The audience exclaimed. The sect leader could not hide his surprise and said, I didn't expect that the young master of the Aoshi Shengzan would actually comprehend the thunder system. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Surrounded by lightning, Ao Washang gently raised his hands and said proudly, trash, are you feeling desperate? Swish, the lightning gathered at his fingertips, and a lightning bolt instantly ejected, blasting past at an extremely fast speed. But the space in front of Yi Xingchen shook, and the 8 characters of Kan, Zen, Kan, Zhen, Kun, Zun, Li, and EUI emerged and quickly condensed into a substantial barrier. Ding. The arc of electricity hit it and was instantly bounced back. The expression on Ao Washang's face froze because the moves he performed were actually blasting towards him. Don't panic. Don't rush. I will take back the energy I have released. Ao Washang immediately opened his right palm. Boom. The moment the power of thunder and lightning came into contact with his skin, a violent explosion was heard instantly. With such a strong impact, if it were an ordinary fighting arena, the stone slab under his feet would have been shattered long ago, but now it is not affected. Dozens of formation masters worked together to arrange it. The leader of the Wangu sect personally tested the stone slabs that had no problems with skin friction, and the quality was absolutely guaranteed. Buzz. The aftermath of the explosion had not yet ended. Yi Xingchen moved frequently and only saw the area centered on Ao Washang, condensing a defensive barrier with 8 characters written on it. What kind of moves is this? I've never seen it. Warriors from all walks of life were dumbfounded. At this moment, the pervasive thunder aura dissipated, and Ao Washang stood there with his hair standing upright, with a dull look in his eyes. How did the energy I released hurt myself? Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a powerful force came over, causing him to raise his fist angrily and punch it. The lightning energy exploded, and a sizzling sound was heard. Yi Xingchen dodged the attack cleverly to one side, and only saw the fist carrying the lightning force hit the barrier that was set up in advance. Boom. The violent power came again. The more force Ao Washang used in his punch, the more force was rebounded on the barrier, so the whole person exploded backwards, unable to suppress the wow blood spurting out. The audience's mouths twitched, although they also saw that the smooth barrier abounded the force. The scene of the young master of the Ao Shisheng sect using force to hit himself was really funny. I'm angry. Ao Washang suppressed the blood in his body, roared angrily, and his upright black hair burst into a strong lightning. Sizzling. Thunder clouds appeared out of thin air above the arena, and the lightning inside rolled, quickly gathering the most powerful thunder and lightning. Thunder punishment. Ao Washang said angrily. Boom. 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 Layers of lightning and thunder erupted from the thunder clouds, so many that they covered the entire arena. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 722. Answer me, who is trash? The thunder clouds that filled the air instantly ejected dense lightning, shocking the audience to gasp. This momentum, this intensity, did it really come from a young man, from a martial king? City Lord Han said solemnly, the young master of the Ao Shisheng sect will surely become the leader of the new generation of Xinjiang continent in the future. Just from the condensed lightning, he gave a very high evaluation. Really? Jun Changxiao smiled. It might have been possible before, but there is no future in the future. Because his disciples can make him understand what psychological shadows are. But when thousands of lightning fell, the space below suddenly shook, and the huge and infinite Kan, Zen, Kan, Zhen, Kun, Zun, Li, and EUI characters appeared in 8 areas. Hoo-hoo, the 8 characters moved quickly, and a smooth barrier lying flat suddenly appeared, also covering the entire martial arts arena. This move is called Daozuan Kan Kun. Back then in Death Valley, Yi Xingchen had performed it, and saved Xiaozuji. At that time, he was just a martial arts apprentice, and it was extremely difficult for him to perform. Now that he has entered the realm of martial arts king, he is not only proficient in using it, but also has a new level of understanding. This martial art is enough to deal with garbage. Swish, swish. Thousands of lightning bolts blasted down. The strange thing is that this time, not only did they not bounce back, but they merged into the barrier and disappeared. What's going on? It's like a space artifact, storing all the lightning. Incredible. Not to mention the stunned audience, even a martial arts saint like Han City Lord had never seen such a strange move before. How is it possible? Seeing that all the lightning bolts he had condensed were stored in the barrier, Ao Washang's proud face was filled with disbelief. Swish. Yi Xingchen waved his fingers lightly. Whoosh. The smooth barrier that was originally lying flat suddenly tilted. Seeing the mirror facing him, Aowashang suddenly felt an ominous sign in his heart. Not good. Hiss hiss hiss. Suddenly, in the smooth barrier, sharp lightning bolts spurted out, and the power and momentum were exactly the same as those that felt just now. What a good move. Give him a taste of his own medicine. Jun Changxiao smiled. Boom. 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 The explosions on the arena continued, with climaxes one after another. Warriors from all over the continent looked dazed when they saw the lightning gathering in the sky through the light curtain. It was really unusual to collect all the lightning released by others and then use it to fight back. Gradually, the lightning on the arena weakened, and the strong stone slabs still existed and were not affected at all. But Aowashang, who was standing on it, was devastated and embarrassed. The lightning in his hair and the arrogance that seemed to be born with him were weakened a lot in the bombardment. A piece of trash. It actually made him so embarrassed. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. Aowashang clenched his fists, and the lightning lingering on his arms became stronger again, and the thunder power that permeated the surroundings gradually gathered into a giant, like an inviolable thunder god. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Lightning and space collided crazily, and a harsh sound came, as if war drums and horns sounded, and thousands of troops were galloping on the battlefield. This is, City Lord Han said in surprise, thunder sound body. Oh. Jun Chang laughed. Is this physique very strong? Very strong. City Lord Han said solemnly, there are thousands of physiques in the Xinjiang continent, and the thunder sound body can rank in the top 10. Jun Chang laughed. Compared with the Holy Flame body, this. City Lord Han pondered for a moment and said, the Holy Flame body is the strongest physique in the fire system. From the perspective of level alone, the Thunder Sound body is a little worse. Then it's very ordinary. Jun Chang laughed. City Lord Han was speechless. He thought that the physique ranked in the top 10 was very ordinary. Thunder Sound body. This is the Thunder Sound body. The strong men who knew about physiques also recognized it. For a time, the warriors and the entire venue had a huge fluctuation in their hearts. After all, this is one of the top physiques on the continent. Zhao Dazhuang, who had been eliminated, saw Aowashang activating his thunder body and said with a burning look, I really want to fight him. Hoo-hoo. On the fighting stage, the might of thunder roared out, and the condensed giant was like the god of thunder walking out of the thunder pool. Rubbish. Aowashang's black hair was flying, and he said with bloodshot eyes, bear the wrath of the god of thunder. Pa. Before he finished speaking, Yi Xingqian appeared in front of him, and his palm covered by spiritual energy directly clasped his face and said, don't tarnish the word god. Boom. The whole fighting stage suddenly shook. Through the light curtain, you can see that Yi Xingqian took a step forward and directly dragged Aowashang's face, and pressed it hard on the ground. Swish. Boom. Swish. Boom. The young leader of the Strongest Sect was held by the face, lifted up again and again, pressed down again and again, and the back of his head hit the stone slab frantically and violently. Whoosh. The giants gathered, clasped their fists and smashed down with a force of 10,000 kilograms, but when they were about to fall, Yi Xingqian suddenly turned his head and said coldly, get out. Buzz. The whole space was immediately rippled and spread with the fighting stage as the center. The giant that was carrying the force to smash down suddenly stopped and then collapsed into nothingness in full view of everyone. The whole venue was quiet in an instant. Boom. Boom. Aowashang's head was still hitting the ground frantically. Suzaomo and others standing in the distance were immediately distressed for the stone slab. That was always it. What happened? How did the condensed thunder giant collapse directly? Everyone came back to their senses, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. City Lord Han frowned. The moment Yi Xingqian said the word get out, he caught an extremely terrifying momentum, and an unprecedented fear rose in his heart. That feeling flashed by. City Lord Han was still unsure of what kind of momentum it was. This was the momentum of the martial emperor. Although it only existed for a moment, it was definitely not something that the martial king could contend with. Boom. Boom. Yi Xingqian grabbed Aowashang's arrogant face and madly bombarded the stone slab. The latter was instantly dizzy and his eyes were swollen, and the spiritual energy gathered in his arms gradually dissipated. The winner is determined. City Lord Han said. The young leader of the Strongest Sect had his physique broken, and now he was bombarded madly, which was equivalent to losing his combat ability. Even so, Yi Xingqian's ravage of this garbage was not over. After bombarding for a while, he pulled his hair with his other hand and hit the stone slab hard with his face. The rubbing of the stone slab with the face of the Jun sect master was just a good wish of the author and the readers. Aowashan was now using his face to measure whether the stone slab arranged by dozens of array masters was strong or not. Very strong. After enduring multiple impacts and frictions, the stone slab was only stained with blood, and there was no dent or breakage. After a while, Yi Xingqian threw Aowashan to the ground like a dead dog, stepped on his face with his right foot, and said, "Answer me, who is trash?" Everyone's mouth twitched. It must be weird that people can still talk after being abused like this. The second-rate Sane Sect's young master was abused so horribly under the attention of the crowd, and now he was stepped on the face, which was more cruel than killing him. If it weren't for the rules, Aowashan would have become a corpse by now. Suddenly, a terrifying wave of air gathered in the sky of the arena, and then the whole space seemed to be torn apart by a big hand. "Yi, you are still alive." A pleasant voice suddenly sounded in my ears. Boom. Yi Xingqian was struck by lightning, and the whole person stood still. Then he raised his head and looked at the space crack with red eyes. "Lingai-ao." The two words shouted in his heart made him furious. The veins on his face burst, and the whole person seemed to be in an absolute frenzy. "Since you are reborn, why not live an ordinary life?" The pleasant voice came again, but at the end it revealed endless murderous intent. Suddenly, in the torn space, a huge palm that seemed to come from the sky pressed down. In front of such power, all living beings seemed to become insignificant. Yi Xingqian's pupils suddenly shrank, and a strong breath of death instantly surged into his heart. He shouted angrily in his heart, "Lingai-ao, wait for me." Boom. It seemed that the energy from the sky, carrying the power that cannot be desecrated, pressed hard on the fighting stage, and immediately rolled up a rolling dust. Chapter 723. With me here, no one can hurt you. When the palm print from the depths of the starry sky pressed down, the whole world seemed to lose its color, and everyone seemed to be frozen. People from the upper realm. Yi was shocked. Although his body could not move, his mind was still alive, and he could feel the palm print pressing down, carrying the power from the upper realm that could not be desecrated. Yi was puzzled and said, "Why did this guy anger the people above, and he was willing to tear the space to wipe him out? Could it be that he also escaped and took refuge like himself?" Alas, he was discovered, and there was no hope. Yi was helpless. If he still had his previous cultivation, even if he only recovered 10%, he could easily break this power, but now he couldn't even move, and could only watch his fellow disciples being suppressed. Speaking of which, the palm print pressed down and covered most of the fighting stage. How could he not be worried when he was in it? Because this power from the upper realm seemed to be extremely huge, but in fact it only locked Yi Xingqian alone, and would not harm the fish pond. Aowashan is quite pitiful. Yi thought to himself, if Yi Xingqian steps on him, he will definitely be implicated. No. At this moment, a force suddenly erupted from the viewing platform and rushed over at the fastest speed. Yi was still able to use a little spiritual power from the huge restraint and instantly captured that the sect master was standing in front of Yi Xingqian with a strong breath bursting out from his body, and his whole body was covered with steel-like armor. This strong pressure could not restrain him. In addition, the power that erupted from the sect master's body seemed to be stronger than the last time he abused the elder of the extreme cold palace. Sure enough, this guy has been hiding very deeply. However, he always erupts at this juncture. Is he a jerk? Jun Changxiao, who had just crushed the Kyankan talisman and activated the defensive form of the armed wing, would definitely kick him to the earth with a flying kick if he heard what this disciple was thinking. Yi Xingqian, who thought he was going to die, saw the sect master standing in front of him in a steel suit, and his expression suddenly froze. Xingqian. Jun Changxiao stood in front of him, facing the palm print that was about to come down, and said, "With this seat here, no one can hurt you." This selfless love from the sect master instantly made Yi Xingqian. Boom. The huge palm print pressed hard on the fighting stage, and immediately rolled up dust all over the sky. When everything was gone, half of the fighting stage was sunken with a huge palm print and leaking Gyang, and others in the distance were not affected. However, they were still in a frozen state, as if time had stopped. Only He Wudi knew that people in the upper realm had restrictions and could not attack in the lower realm at will unless they could not help it, and then used magical powers to block everything. Looking down from above, you can see that there is a complete piece of ground in the center of the pressed palm print that has not been destroyed. Yi Xingchen stood there with a dull look on his face. The sect master, who was fully armed with steel, gradually emerged from the dust, with his hands crossed, grinning and saying, "This palm is really fucking powerful. Who are you?" A pleasant voice sounded in my ears. Jun Changxiao did not answer this question, but looked at the crack in the sky. His eyes were cold and he said, "I will take this palm for my disciple, and I will make him pay back 100-fold in the future." Pay back 100-fold? The pleasant voice came. "Do you think he is qualified? Sect master." At this moment, He Wudi sent a voice. "The person who made the move must be from the upper realm. The upper realm has boundary rules, and it is not allowed to harass the lower realm. Hurry up and use it to deter." He did not hear the pleasant voice, but he was 100% sure that the person who made the move came from the upper realm. At this time, using the boundary rules to suppress should be able to reverse the situation. The strong who came down from the high plane is experienced. Jun Changxiao's mind turned very quickly, and he said lightly, "This is a lower realm. You made a move without authorization. Aren't you afraid of disturbing the order of heaven and earth, and being punished by the boundary rules?" The pleasant voice slowly stopped, as if it was in deep thought and entanglement. After a while, a gentle voice came to Yi Xingchen's ears. "Since you and I have loved each other, I hope you can take care of yourself, and be an ordinary person in the lower world." The cracks in the sky suddenly began to heal, and returned to their original state in the blink of an eye, as if nothing had happened, and the strong pressure in the venue gradually dissipated. Jun Changxiao retracted the armed wings, and took a deep breath with his hands trembling violently. The Kyankan talisman and the armed wings defense form could only allow him to barely take the palm print that was pressed down. If it happened again, he would definitely be dead. However, who was that beautiful voice? Why would such a strong palm print be condensed to kill Yi Xingchen? The system said, "Do you still need to think about it? It must be his enemy in the previous life." In that case, Jun Changxiao said secretly, "My disciple is not only a strong man reborn, but also a strong man from the upper world." Yes, the system vowed. Strangely enough, after the space cracks disappeared, even the sunken palm prints disappeared, and the damaged arena was restored, as if time had flowed back to the scene when Yi Xingchen had just abused Ao Washan. But what could not be returned was Jun Changxiao's dead Kyankan talisman. "Master Jun." At this moment, City Lord Han collapsed and said, "When did you run downstairs?" At that moment, Jun Changxiao found that the audience was looking at him, and they seemed to have no memory of what had just happened. Even the originally dark image light curtain was restored, and his heroic and extraordinary body appeared in it. Swish! He suddenly had an idea, pulled out the banner again, and shouted loudly, "Opportunities are rare, and they will never come again." Jun Changxiao used his actions to tell everyone that he suddenly appeared on the fighting stage just to advertise. Nonsense. City Lord Han scolded, "Don't interfere with the game, come up quickly." "Okay." Jun Changxiao took back the banner. However, before leaving, he glanced at Ao Washan who was half dead under his feet, and said, "That's enough, don't make a mistake." Bang! Yi Xingchen kicked Ao Washan off the fighting stage and said lightly, "Trash." He tried to control his emotions and pretended to continue the fight, but he felt unspeakable pain in his heart. "Since you and I have loved each other, I hope you can take care of yourself and be an ordinary person in the lower world." The beautiful voice came to his ears, like a needle piercing Yi Xingchen's heart. This kind of punishment, that seemed like arms, was hard for him to accept with his arrogant personality. So what? Not to mention him now, even the Night Emperor at his peak, was just an ant in front of the powerful man. Unwilling. Really unwilling. "Brother Yi," He Wudi transmitted, "it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge even after 10 years. He thought that Yi Xingchen also came from the upper realm, and suddenly felt that they were both wanderers in the world. That's right. It is never too late for a gentleman To take revenge even after 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years. Yi Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief and said secretly, kill me once, give me a palm, just like the sect master said, I will return it to you 100-fold at that time. Thinking of this, he looked at Jun Changxiao who was chatting and laughing with City Lord Han, his eyes flashing with complex colors. When that terrifying palm print pressed down, he actually blocked in front of him. If he died, wouldn't he worry that the Wangdu sect would fall apart? Or is the disciple's life really that important to him, and he can't allow others to hurt him in the slightest? When Jun Changxiao led a large number of disciples to attack the Jihan Palace, Yi Xingchen had thought about how such a reckless behavior could achieve great things in the future. Until just now, when he was on the verge of life and death, he seemed to understand a lot in an instant. Junior brother Yi. Suzai almost smiled and said, do you want to continue fighting? Yi Xingchen looked at him, looked at Li Qingyang and others, and said in his heart, this sect leader and these fellow disciples are really annoying. Swish. He turned around, pointed at the disciples of the Aoshi Sheng sect, and said, trash, come and fight. Through the clouds and mist, through the sky, in that palace, that seemed real and illusory, a graceful figure leaned lazily on the throne, and whispered, with his personality, it's really strange that he can condescend to be in the sect. Master. A man in black appeared and said, people from the Jutang, please explain why you took action in the lower realm without authorization. Did you notice it so quickly? The graceful figure murmured, fortunately, I didn't take action again, otherwise I would be deliberately made things difficult by a group of old antiques. PS. The fourth update, please vote. Chapter 724. The competition ended successfully. Because of some kind of power, the audience at the venue forgot about the space tearing. However, He Wudi remembered, Yi Xingchen remembered, and Jun Changxiao also remembered. The first two, one passed through the flesh, and the other was directly targeted, which can still be barely explained. Why is Jun Changxiao special than others? Is it because of his thick skin that the pressure from the upper realm cannot penetrate? What's more, he can ignore the restraints and directly open the armed wing defense to rush over. Even if he activated the Kyankan talisman and his cultivation soared to an extremely high level, didn't Han Shengzhu, who is also a martial saint, still freeze and didn't find anything unusual? Maybe I'm handsome. Jun Changxiao gave himself an impeccable explanation. The system said, aren't you tired? Jun Changxiao said speechlessly, of course I'm tired, but the dragon and tiger hegemony is not over yet. I have to hold on. Resisting a palm from the upper realm consumed nearly 90% of his spiritual energy. Although he was blessed by the Kyankan talisman at this moment, he was only a small step away from exhaustion. This is because the opponent did not really go all out, but just bombarded Yi Xingchen casually. Otherwise, with Jun Changxiao's easily knocked down small body, he would have been turned into dust long ago. Host is really brave. The system said in admiration, you dared to rush over in that situation just now. Even now, its heart is pounding when it thinks of it, although it has no heart. You don't understand. Jun Changxiao said, this is the love that only humans have. He has always regarded the sect as his home and himself as a parent. If the child is in danger, should the parents sit idly by? I can't understand the love of you humans. The system said, but I know that if the host continues to play like this, sooner or later he will die. It doesn't matter. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, anyway, if I die, you will die too. At the end, I can drag someone to die with me, so I won't be lonely on the road to the underworld. Although he was joking, his face became more serious. The power from the upper world is too strong, and he can't compete with his current strength. If a similar situation occurs again in the future, will he watch his disciples being wiped out? No. Jun Chang smiled and said secretly, the battle between dragon and tiger is over. We must practice hard. The power from the upper realm suddenly came out, which made him feel a strong sense of crisis. Only by making himself stronger can he be a good parent. Yi Xingchen was also thinking, why did that woman suddenly appear? Did he accidentally reveal the aura of the martial emperor just now, and was caught by her? And her first sentence was, that you are still alive. This is expected means that the woman should have known that she was not dead, or that she knew that she was reborn. Could it be that breaking the void and ascending to the upper realm gave her some powerful magical powers, which could it use, that her soul was not completely destroyed? Swish. At this moment, the disciples of the Aoshi Shengzang took the opportunity to attack, and condensed a powerful fist to hit. Pa. Yi Xingchen raised his hand to catch it and crushed it, then rushed to the opponent, pressed one hand on his face, and smashed him to the ground, angrily saying, "I can't figure it out." Bang. "I can't figure it out." Bang. "I can't figure it out." A moment later, the disciple was beaten to a pulp, and then fell in front of a group of fellow disciples. Without Ao Washang, Aoshi Shengzang had no hope, so the next disciples who came out to fight alone would not be able to escape the fate of being beaten by Yi Xingchen. There is no suspense anymore. The leaders of various sects shook their heads. A fifth-rate sect won the Dragon and Tiger Championship. Who would have thought of such a thing? Hu, in Xianyu Royal City, Yi Xiangxing, who was lying on the bed, had a red face and a short breath as Yi Xingchen beat his opponent down again and again. "Hurry up. Give them medicine." Elder Zen urged. Elder Zhao took out 2 bottles of pills, shook them helplessly, and said, "They've all been eaten. Why didn't you prepare more?" With the master in this state, no matter how many pills he takes, it won't be suppressed. Plop. The light curtain was heard to fall again, and another disciple of the Proud Saint sect was abused and flew out. Yi Xiangxing covered his chest, his breathing suddenly stopped, and he looked like he was about to be out of breath, and had a heart attack. "Do it." Elder Zhao and Elder Zen looked at each other, and directly gathered spiritual energy in their palms, hitting Yi Xiangxing's neck hard. The opponent had no defense, and immediately stretched his legs, spread his hands and fainted. The 11th. The 12th. In the cities of Yangzhou in the southwest, every time Yi Xingchen knocked an opponent away, the warriors would shout in unison, and every inch of hair stood up excitedly. Boom. In the end, under the bombardment of Yi Xingchen, the last disciple of the Proud Saint sect fell to the stage with a swollen face. "We won. We won. The sect we sent from southwest Yangzhou is the champion." The entire southwest Yangzhou was suddenly filled with deafening shouts. How many people hugged each other? How many people shed tears on the spot? How many people shouted in unison for the sect that made them proud and proud? Wangu sect is mighty, senior brother is mighty. After suppressing themselves for a long time, more than 10,000 disciples of Wangu sect also cheered loudly, with pride on their faces, no less than any warrior in southwest Yangzhou. This day, the entire southwest Yangzhou is destined to fall into carnival. Aoshi Shengzang is eliminated. Champion City Lord Han shouted loudly with a long tone. Wangu sect. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He was still holding me down after the competition. Damn. If it weren't for the exhaustion of spiritual energy, at my current level, I would have bound you back in a minute, and then flew up to advertise. Baby. Looking at his group of lovely disciples with a face full of satisfaction, Jun Changxiao said in a group voice transmission, "Thank you for your hard work." Suzuomo embraced Li Fei with a smile on her face. The other disciples looked at the master and felt the respectful gazes from everyone present. At this moment, they were qualified to enjoy the respect of the world. The imaging array lens also gave these winners close-ups, but they were all controlled on the close-ups of their faces, because if they were a little further away, the advertising slogans on their bodies would be revealed. After the fight, there was an award ceremony. According to previous regulations, the winner of the Dragon and Tiger battle will receive a reward of 10,000 spirit stones and a plaque engraved with the 4 golden characters Dragon and Tiger battle. The spirit stones are just a foil, and this plaque is the most valuable, because there are countless sects in this Xinjiang continent, and only one who is truly qualified can be obtained every few years. City Lord Han. Jun Changxiao said seriously, "Can I use this plaque to exchange for tens of thousands of spirit stones?" "No." City Lord Han's mouth twitched slightly. Although the cost of a plaque is not expensive, it is not something that any sect can afford. He actually wants to exchange it for spirit stones. Let's go, let's go. After the award ceremony, Jun Changxiao looked at the gradually closing image formation reluctantly, and then took his disciples away. However, before leaving, he sent a message. "City Lord Han, you don't plan to commercialize the Dragon and Tiger battle?" If someone advertises like Jun in the future, you might as well mosaic them. Oh, no, it should be blurred. It seems a bit difficult. Believe me, your formation master can do it. There will be a meeting in the mountains and rivers. Jun Changxiao waved his hand and said, see you later. Watching this guy and his disciples leave the venue, City Lord Han finally breathed a sigh of relief. This crazy guy who advertised has finally left, and finally he doesn't have to stare at him with all his attention. The dragon and tiger battle ended successfully. Just when everyone was still discussing it, just when Jun Changxiao took his disciples back to the sect. In the deep area of Bimozhao, that has not been visited for many years, cracks gradually appeared in the space, and a violent aura spread out. Foolish human, do you think you can seal this king forever with just a few bastards? Dream on. What the hell is this big dream? PS. The 5th update. Please vote. Chapter 725. Our hero is back. There is an ancient altar in Zhangzhou that has existed for a long time. The relevant departments cannot give an accurate time when it was built. In the central area of the altar, there is a globe-like ball hanging, which releases a faint light every day. Snap. One day, a slight crack appeared in the light ball. Swish, swish, swish. 5 old men in white robes hurried in from outside, their turbid eyes filled with solemnity. Why did the space barrier crack? Could it be related to the space shock from the previous Dazan Imperial City? Possibly. The location of this crack. Not good. It's the uninhabited area, where the monster is sealed in Bimozhao. Go. Go. The leading old man said nervously. Go and reinforce it quickly, so that the monster will not break the seal, and cause trouble to Xinjiang continent again. Swish. 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 5 streams of light flew out of Zhangzhou and headed towards Bimozhao. However, when they arrived at the scene, they only saw the space crack that was slowly healing, and did not find anything. It's over. The 5 people's hearts sank, and they said, that monster has escaped. It has been sealed for thousands of years, and it must be extremely weak at this moment. We must find it, as soon as possible. The leading old man said in a deep voice. In the sacred hall, an old man with supreme pressure all over his body, sat in the first seat, and shouted in a deep voice, Lingai-ao, this is the consequence of your unauthorized action in the lower world. Several majestic old men on both sides all looked coldly at the graceful figure standing below who seemed to be shrouded in clouds and mist. The seal has long been aging, and it is only a matter of time before it is broken. A pleasant voice came from the clouds and mist, saying, besides, don't the superiors in your world hall ignore the creatures of the lower world? As long as the rules of the world are in place, no one can violate them. The leading old man shouted coldly. The graceful figure said lightly, this emperor has explained it very clearly, but it was just a casual wave of his hand, and no living creatures were hurt. If there is nothing else, I will go back first. After saying that, he disappeared from the spot. Sir. The old man sitting on the left said in a deep voice, this Empress Lingai-ao is getting more and more presumptuous. She clearly violated the rules of the realm, and she just left after explaining casually. What does she think of the realm hall? Because the woman left without permission, several old men were furious. HMPH. The majestic old man sitting at the top said in a cold voice, Empress Lingai-ao, don't let us have any handles in the hands of the realm hall. Sir. The old man next to him said, the space barrier of the Xinjiang continent was broken because of Empress Lingai-ao. How should we deal with it? She is right. The seal has gradually become ineffective. It is only a matter of time before it is broken. Since it cannot be avoided, it is natural to let these mortal creatures face it. The majestic old man said lightly. After all, the sealed monster came from the upper realm. The overall strength of the Xinjiang continent has seriously declined in the past few thousand years. I'm afraid it will be difficult to compete with it. Someone said solemnly. Any disaster is destined by God. Whether it can be resolved depends on their luck. How can we have time to care about such a small matter? The majestic old man waved his hand and said, let's all go. King Yang, the master is hungry. Go and get some vegetarian food. In the beautiful forest, Jun Changxiao said weakly, while lying on a bamboo chair. He looked very haggard. He looked like he had aged more than 10 years out of thin air when he was in his early 20s. The Kyankan talisman played an indispensable role in his fall to this point. Seeing the miserable appearance of Jun Changxiao, the system not only did not have the slightest sympathy, but also wanted to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Jun Changxiao. Changxiao. Li Qingyang took out a bowl of fried rice from the space ring and said, I still have some dry food prepared by junior sister Liu. How about we make do with a couple of bites first? Yeah. Jun Changxiao slowly opened his mouth. After eating the fried rice, he finally had a little strength in his body and said, let's go. Oh, so pitiful. Jun Changxiao was quite depressed when he participated in the dragon and tiger contest. He didn't get many substantial martial arts resources, and he was only given a plaque, which was not made of pure gold. How could the organizer be so stingy for such a big event? What made Jun Changxiao a little relieved was that after the dragon and tiger contest ended, he got a total of 4 experience charms, including the 2 experience charms he had used before. Before the match between the Eternal Ancient Sect and the Aoshisheng Sect, there was another side quest. The sect won the fight and won the championship, and 2 experience charms were clearly marked as rewards. Because Yi was in a hurry to abuse Ao Washang at that time, the author didn't have a chance to write it. For such a big event, only 4 experience charms were given, and no contribution points were given. The system is even more stingy. Jun Changxiao complained. The high-level mall products are so awesome, he would rather use 4 experience charms to exchange for 40,000 contribution points so that he can buy 4 products and become stronger. It is impossible to practice, and it is impossible in this life. If conditions permit, Jun Changxiao will definitely choose to take the shortcut of cheating. Because he had no strength left and did not bring the Black Hawk of Demon Ridge with him, Jun Changxiao could only return to the Eternal Sect in half a month with his disciples taking turns carrying him. But as soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw a dense crowd of warriors gathered together, and the initial estimate was that there were at least 1 million of them. Oh my god. Suzaomo said in surprise, so many people. Our hero is back. At this moment, someone shouted at the top of his lungs. Swish, swish, swish. The warriors who were waiting anxiously looked over, and when they saw Jun Changxiao and others, they pulled out big flags and hoisted banners. Master Jun. Ziguancan stepped forward and bowed, saying, thank you for your hard work. Wang Guzhang won the dragon and tiger contest. As the lord of Qingyang City, he must organize the masses to congratulate him. Don't say it. I've been waiting for several days. Jun Changxiao sat on a bamboo chair and bowed, saying, thank you, Lord, for your thoughtfulness. Swish, swish. The people of Qingyang City spontaneously made way for a road leading to the mountain. The disciples of Wang Guzhang walked straight ahead under their gaze, and everyone stood up straight, enjoying the pleasure of being the center of attention. Jun Changxiao was also filled with mixed feelings. Although he participated in the dragon and tiger contest more for the spirit stones, it was still quite a feeling to have so many fellow villagers and elders come to welcome him. Oh, right. There are also spirit stones. When will Master Yi be delivered? There is no hope for the time being, because Master Yi is in a state of awakening, fainting, awakening, and fainting, and he never gets tired of it. Hoo hoo. In the dark forest, a pair of big eyes suddenly appeared from the bushes, and the eyeballs turned up and down, left and right, and then walked out carefully. It was a slender man with purple hair, but his whole body was exposed. Although there was no one around here, it was really against customs to be naked in broad daylight. Roar, roar. At this moment, the roar in the forest shook the sky. I saw huge spirit beasts rushing out from the darkness, and then they all knelt in front of the purple-haired man, shouting excitedly, meet the king. Yes. The purple-haired man sat on a stone, with his legs spread apart. This person's face exuded a demonic aura, exuding a faint aura of egocentrism. He said, after so many years, you still remember me. I'm very happy, my king. A spirit beast laughed and said, do you want to find some human clothes to wear first? Bang. Suddenly, a purple-haired man suddenly appeared in front of it, punched it away, and said with a cold look, wearing human clothes is a blasphemy to my noble body. This is why he doesn't wear clothes. The beasts shuddered, and their eyes were filled with fear. The king has been sealed for so long, and his strength is still so strong. It won't be long before our beast tribe embarks on the road of revival again. My king, a spirit beast said weakly, the people of the tribe are waiting for your return in Death Valley. Death Valley? The purple-haired man clenched his fists and said angrily, my people must have been bullied extremely badly by humans over the years. Otherwise how could they be in such a small place where no one lives? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.